Welcome to the February 24th, 2026 City Council meeting. I hereby call the meeting to order. Members of the public may attend this meeting in person or may watch it or listen remotely by viewing the meeting on Channel 8 WCTV and the city's website at wayzata.org. Public comment during the public forum and or public hearing portions of the meeting may be provided in person or at the meeting in advance or by logging into the Teams call and raising your hand during the public hearing. When your name is called in the meeting, you will be seen and heard in our council chambers and the cable channel. You'll be asked to unmute, make sure your camera is on, and then you may begin your comments. All public comments should include your first name and the street or neighborhood or representing a group. Next is the Pledge of Allegiance. If I could ask everyone to stand if you are able and follow along. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Next is our roll call. Let the record reflect that all council members are present, and I will note that earlier this evening, we all participated in a workshop and discussed the following items: discussion of Lake Street closures for special events, an update on the Park and Trails Master Plan and CIP, and then reviewed our future workshop discussion topics. Next on our agenda is to approve the agenda. I need a motion to approve the agenda as is, or would anyone like to make any changes?
I'll make that motion to approve as is, Mr. Mayor.
Great. Can I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in those favors say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The motion passes 5-0. Next up is our public forum. Just a reminder for those here in the public attendance tonight and you're interested in speaking, fill out a card, pass it to staff, and indicate your first name, the neighborhood that you're representing or group. Limit your comments to 3 minutes, and if you want to speak that's something that's on the agenda, you fill out a form also, but for a named agenda item. And so first item on our public forum is a presentation of Wayzata School District Referendum by Superintendent Chace Anderson. Do we have anyone else that filled out a card for non-agenda items?
Mr. Mayor, we
Okay, great. So we just have one presenter. Welcome, Mr. Anderson. Yeah, right here. You're on the home stretch of doing these, right? As you've announced your
That's
your
correct.
retirement. So
Yeah, it's a little surreal yet at this point after 18 years here in the school district and 43 years in my career. It seemed like an okay time for the district for the transition to occur, and I have a lot of mixed feelings about it, and have certainly loved my time here and serving the community. So a lot of mixed feelings, but I have two primary goals here in my remaining time. One I'm here to speak briefly with you about tonight is our upcoming facilities referendum. And then the second one is to help us nail the handoff to the new superintendent. So we're hoping by mid-March, the school board will have that person selected, and I'll have some nice time to spend with them. So I do really appreciate it, Mr. Mayor and council members. Thank you so much for creating a few moments for me. I'll try to be brief with my comments. I brought a few flyers here with me too that I'll leave behind, and you can grab those on the way out or following the meeting. I think you also have been provided with a video that we're going to queue up here in a moment, but I'm maybe going to just hit a few quick highlights about our proposal. I have a very thick PowerPoint presentation that you'll be glad to know I'm not going to go through tonight because I can spend up to 30 or 60 minutes depending on the number of questions, et cetera, with that. But I thought I would hit a few of the highlights, and then they'll be reinforced with the video, and then I'd be happy to take any questions that you may have for me. So April 14th is the date that is identified as our official election date. Early voting for our facilities referendum starts this Friday at our district service center. So there's a 6-week time period approximately prior to the concluding day for the election. And a few of the things that I wanted to share is we've been on an enrollment growth journey the entire time I've been here. So I've been working with the school district for 18 years. When I started here in July of 2008, we had 9,000 700 K-12 students, of which about 1,350, you can tell I've done this presentation a few times, were open enrollment students actually at the time. And today we have 13,000 K-12 students, and about 220 of those are open enrollment. So we've been growing and adding facilities to accommodate our resident students within the footprint of the school district. So we've gone from about 17% open enrolled students to about 1.5%. So the facilities that we're proposing for the community are engineered and designed to accommodate what we're anticipating for a pretty good growth curve yet. We think that this is the final spurt for significant growth within the school district, and these facilities would help accommodate that. I've been speaking at PTA meetings now for 18 years, and I would say for 12 or 15 years of those, I've been saying that I believe our community will probably cap out somewhere in that neighborhood of about 14,500 students, K-12. Might go up a little bit or may stay a little bit below that. Our enrollment projections are suggesting that my approximations probably weren't too far off. But we are going to hit those outer limits of our school district. Currently, Medina is sort of the large open area yet that we're anticipating at least an additional 600 single-family homes being built in Medina over a period of a number of years. Whether or not there will be additional homes beyond that is yet to be determined. But we do anticipate pretty good amount of growth there. There's still quite a lot of space in Corcoran as well that we anticipate that there will be a number of developments continuing there as well. Again, I'm just trying to hit the highlights. I did a little bit of a projection with the what ifs. What if we grew at the same rate for the next 10 years that we've grown for the last 18? What would that put us out into the future? So we've averaged about an increase of 185 to 200 new K-12 students every year in the 18 years that I've been here. The exception was the fall of 2020, which was the COVID year, where some families made alternative choices for a year, and then we kind of leveled off. So we dropped actually 200 students, which was really an anomaly for us. Then we leveled off for a year, and now we're back at that rate of about 180 to 200 students per year. So in the event that we were to grow at the exact same rate annually for the next 10 years, we would be just under 15,000 students. If we grew at 75%, we'd be at about 14,500, 50% at about 14,000, and even with only 25% of that same growth rate, we'd still be at about 13,500 students. So I don't think the 25% is realistic, and I also don't think the 100% is realistic, but I think we're going to approximate that about 75% of the growth rate for the next 10 years before our community is going to start hitting that equilibrium point and leveling off, probably at about 14,500 to 14,600 K-12 students. So we've been real involved with facilities since the time that I've been here, almost every year. We've been focusing on how to expand capacity within the existing buildings and or create new facilities by adding on classrooms or building new schools. We've built 2 elementary schools in that time frame, and we've Meadow Ridge and Northwoods up in north part of Plymouth. And we built a new early learning school, which was an addition built onto Oakwood Elementary School to accommodate high demand within the community for early learning opportunities. And this proposal will add some additional classrooms on the second floor of that facility that we built. At the time, we didn't have enough funds to finish off the upper level, but we've incorporated that into our plan that we're bringing to the community. So there's 3 questions on the ballot. The first one is a straight renewal of one of our 2 technology levies. So we bring in about $12 million per year through 2 voter-approved tech levies. And we're seeking renewal of one of those 2 for an additional 10 years. I think there's 2 or 3 years of capacity or time frame left on the existing. So that would extend it out by 10 years. We utilize that for all the equipment for students, for our staff, for a number of staff members who keep our software and hardware systems up to date, and also a number of safety and security things across the district as well. A second question will be what I'm calling our comprehensive facilities package. So it's in the amount of $465 million, and it includes a new elementary school, a new middle school on property that we own in Medina. We have about 85 acres, of which 65 acres are buildable, and it's large enough for both an elementary school that would accommodate about 900 additional students and a middle school that would accommodate an additional 800 students. And again, I believe that that increase or addition of those two buildings and an addition onto our high school would accommodate what we might anticipate for the great majority of the growth into the future. And then for the third question, it's related to the construction of a new swimming pool at the high school. And that would be in the amount of $31 million, and that would be an 8-lane swimming pool. It would be adjacent to our gymnasiums and our Phi-Ed area. It would be the home of our approximately 200 boys and girls swimmers at the high school. And currently they use Lifetime Fitness in Plymouth. We signed a 40-year agreement on that, and of which we've used 30 years. So we're kind of on the clock with 10 years left of having access to a pool with no assurances beyond that. And in addition to the convenience of the location and having opportunities to secure and provide safe and maximum safety environment for our students to have it on our own campus, adjacent to our locker rooms and other facilities, is seen as a real big plus for us. So the tax impact on the comprehensive package of the $465 million package for the elementary, the middle school, and the addition to the high school, along with a number of other projects and all of our other buildings, on a $650,000 house, and we had Allers and Associates determine what's the average priced home within the footprint of the school district, and it's currently about $650,000. So for a home valued at $650,000, the tax impact would be an additional $29 per month, and that's on a 25-year mortgage, so to speak. And then with the swimming pool, the $31 million package for the swimming pool over a 25-year period on that same $650,000 home would be an additional $4 a month. So it would be $33 per month on a home valued at $650,000. So those are the three questions. Again, early voting begins on Friday of this week at our district service center. There are a number of other projects that are going to be done within our school district as well. Specifically, one of the changes that will happen at West Middle School, which is here in the footprint of Wayzata, which I think most of you know, will be the addition of another gym. We also just finished, for those of you who may have attended West Middle School, whether as a middle school or as a high school perhaps, we just remodeled about 13,000 square feet of former locker room space into 3 music rooms and some practice rooms, and it was a great improvement for that building and a great utilization of what was underutilized space that we're able to make better improvements with. We're going to do a little bit of site work around Plymouth Creek and improve traffic flow for buses and automobiles, and trying to separate those two and improving pedestrian walkways, et cetera. And yeah, that's kind of that's the real quick flyover. I know you have a busy agenda and a lot to get through tonight, but those are kind of the highlights. There's a lot of really great information on our website if you're interested in pulling that up and taking a look at all the things that we have in mind, and if you're interested in getting a little bit more detail, our website is really good. Just go to our homepage and then look for a button that says Referendum. Click on that and you'll find a lot of documents on there that speak specifically to the improvements at the high school, which would include a career tech education program where we would create many or several classrooms that would accommodate our career tech programming and move them out of current kind of standard classrooms that really aren't specifically designed for the construction and the CNA or the Certified Nursing Assistant program that we do. So we're excited about the possibility of being able to more specifically design classrooms that in a better way can meet the needs of our students. So we're excited about that and all the other things that are included. And with that, I might suggest do you have time for the video yet?
Yeah, I have time for the video, and I think there might be a couple questions.
Perfect. So go ahead and cue that up. You'll hear hopefully a few things that you just heard me state as well.
It's been an amazing experience for our family. And the best part is the staff. Everyone strives to make every day a day of opportunity for our kids.
When you think of Wayzata schools, the first thing that pops to my mind is this incredible reputation for being excellent. High quality staff in every role, buildings and resources and things that we're constantly investing in and growing.
It's a healthy sign when a school district is growing. That means people are moving into the community, and with the anticipated growth into the future, we know that we're going to need some more space because we just can't create that within the current footprints of the school buildings that we have.
We are only a year and a half away from being over capacity at all grade levels. That's concerning as a parent.
To plan responsibly, Wayzata Public Schools closely monitors enrollment trends and long-term projections. By the 2027-28 school year, the district is projected to exceed available capacity at elementary, middle school, and high school levels. As enrollment increases, classrooms, hallways, cafeterias, and shared learning spaces become more crowded. Many schools in the district are already at capacity, and many of the buildings need essential improvements. Planning now helps the district manage growth responsibly and maintain a positive student experience at all levels. On April 14th, residents of Wayzata Public Schools will be asked to vote on a school funding referendum. The referendum includes 3 funding requests designed to address continued resident student enrollment growth, space needs, and essential improvements across the district. These requests focus on maintaining technology, safety, and security by renewing our current technology levy, creating new and improved learning spaces to address capacity needs, and a new 8-lane swimming pool at the high school. These requests were generated with the help from a community task force made up of parents, staff, and community members.
Going into the task force process, the thing I was really focused on was going through enrollment projections and history, going through financial details, going through individual blueprints of every single school and building in the district. The outcome of that was just getting to see on display the level of expertise and depth of analysis and sort of data-driven decisions that shaped this plan.
Results from our latest community survey continue to show high approval ratings for our district. We also maintain a AAA bond rating. This rating demonstrates strong financial stability and sound management, while helping the district secure lower interest rates that save taxpayers money.
Renewing the existing technology levy is at the top of the ballot in this referendum. The technology levy focuses on technology, safety, and security. Renewing the levy would result in no tax increase.
The current technology levy is used primarily for teaching, learning, and the human development mission here in Wayzata. And it also goes to operational excellence for safety, security, and technical support in our schools.
Building new and expanded learning spaces to address capacity needs is a major component of this referendum. As enrollment continues to grow, the plan includes building a new elementary school and a new middle school on district-owned land to create space for students across the district.
When we're overcrowded in our schools, that becomes the focus. So our teachers are constantly having to think about how to manipulate the space, how to move students around, and that creates a lot of stress both on our teachers and on our students. It also prevents us from having learning activities designed in a way that students should be learning today. So we're not able to do all of our hands-on learning. We're not being able to be experiential. Adequate space directly impacts the student experience.
To address capacity and program needs, the plan also includes an addition at Wayzata High School designed to support up to 900 additional students and create a centralized space for career and technical education programs.
I think it's an opportunity to meet the evolving business world that our kids are going to be entering. It's an opportunity to create flexible spaces. It's putting us and positioning us in a way where we can really help develop the skills that'll be transferable regardless of which pathway a graduate from Wayzata High School takes.
In addition to new construction, essential improvements to existing schools would be made as well. Kitchen and cafeteria remodels would be done at Birchview, Greenwood, and Sunset Hill Elementary Schools as well as East Middle School. The plan would also include remodeling and expanding learning spaces across the district. The third request of this referendum is consideration of a new 8-lane swimming pool at the high school, allowing the district to plan ahead as its current swimming facility lease approaches expiration. The pool would offer the district and the broader community a year-round space. If Request 1 passes, there would be no tax increase to homeowners in our district. If Request 2 passes, the property tax impact on an average home in the district would be $29 a month. If Request 3 passes, the impact on average home would be an additional $4 a month. This request is contingent on the approval of Request 2.
Thank you for taking the time to learn more about how Wayzata Public Schools is planning for the future. We see growth in our district as a result of the quality of education here in Wayzata, and we believe this plan will address the current and future space needs to continue providing each and every student with an excellent educational experience. We encourage residents to review the information, ask questions, and vote on or before April 14th.
There you have it.
Whoever
That's
invented
the,
this deserves a raise. I can't believe it's already 2025
YouTube.
and people are still using.
That's not a school project.
I was looking around to see who the question was. Hey, they really liked our video.
Yeah, no worries. No worries.
Yeah, I'd be happy to take any questions if you have any.
Yeah, questions of Superintendent Anderson.
I've got a few, actually. You've mentioned the overall numbers for the entire district, but I'm curious, what is the enrollment at the high school only right now?
We have about 4,000 students at the high school. I think we crossed that threshold for the first time this year.
Okay.
And with an additional 800 or 900 students, we'd be probably maxing out at about 4,800. I think 1,150 to 1,200 is going to be that upper limit, which will generate that 14,500 or so students into the future.
Okay. One of the things you talked about was a technology levy. You said this would be an extension or a renewal. Do you know when that first came to a referendum, if it was meant to be evergreen, that it would continuously be renewed, or is this a new idea?
We've had technology levies in place, I believe both of them, for the entire time that I've been here. I think maybe a second one was added, but I think the first one may have been in place prior to that. I started here in 2008. I don't have the exact dates on that question, but we do bring that back to voters as required by the state law to seek renewal for an extended 10-year period. So that's the maximum that public school districts can seek a renewal on a levy of that nature, is a 10-year time period.
Okay, and do the families of the students, are they asked to pay for anything for technology, or is this all provided to every student?
It's pretty much provided. I can't think really of user fees for families for technology systems. So we're fortunate that our community's been very supportive for utilization of our technology systems. So it does provide the iPads, the computers that we use in our computer labs and within a lot of our classrooms. It provides a lot of the equipment within classrooms, the smart boards and projection equipment. It does a lot with safety and security. It also funds our cybersecurity programming to help ensure that we maintain our student and staff data in a safe way and work with a consultant on that. And then we have a number of staff that help with the installation of software and repair of hardware, changing out and prepping new computers and iPads, and providing professional development for the staff, as well as support and assistance for the students.
And have the parents or the families of the students ever been asked to fund some of this in the past?
Yes, every 10 years, approximately every 5 years, because we renew these at kind of alternating times. So we bring one forward now. I think we renewed another one maybe 3 or 4 years ago. So since we have this election coming up in April, we decided that it would be a good time for us to come to extend that, even though this has capacity until, I think, fiscal year 2029, but then that would extend it for a 10-year period.
No, I guess I'd reframe the question.
Okay.
Because the money we're talking about here is coming out of taxpayers, all taxpayers. But I'm curious do the families directly get asked to fund some of this stuff, or is it just provided to all students?
It's provided through this tax levy, and then it comes to the district. But it comes from the families, but because of, the homeowners and the
Many of the homeowners send their kids to private schools, though. so they don't get the benefit of that.
That would be correct.
Okay. And I would say you'd be hard pressed to find an average home in Wayzata for $650,000. So I think the numbers are a little bit skewed there. I did the math, and I know in my house, that levy, the all-in would be about a 25% increase in the city's portion of my tax bill. So it's pretty substantial.
Okay. Yeah, I would say within the footprint of Wayzata, the home average price would be higher. The footprint of the entire district that includes the parts of Plymouth and Maple Grove and Corcoran and Medina and Medicine Lake. I don't know that I got all of them. I got most of them, I think. So
A little bit
the
of
average of all homes.
Little fractions.
Yeah, the average of all homes within the footprint of the district was determined by Ehlers and Associates to be $650,000. So it varies by community, you're right.
Other questions? I had a couple. Just going to frame the question a little differently. And this is just a seek to understand question, because these questions actually, as much as we try to refer them to the district, they cross our desk. Or at least I've had several that have crossed my desk already this year. This tech levy, you said there's two, right? And
Right.
so one is expiring, and that's $6.5 million per year, but extending it for another 10 years, which is $65 million.
Correct.
So it's factual to say there's no incremental hit to the taxpayer, but if it wasn't renewed, that would be taken off. So I just would encourage you to be a little bit more transparent about the fact that there are two out there. You're extending one for another $65 million. I would be transparent about where we are in the cycle on the second one and how much that is annually. So my question is, did I get that right? 10 years at 6.5 that's being extended. And then the second one, for how much and how many years are remaining?
Well, we renewed one 3 years ago, I think, at the time of a school board election. That was extended for 10 years. I can't tell you for sure how many years were left on that one. I'll do
Okay.
more homework on that, so I have the right answers for that in the future.
Yep.
But that one was extended for an additional 10 years, and that's what is being asked for this one as well.
Okay.
So you're right, over a 10-year period, that $6.5 million per year would be the 65.
Okay, just want to make sure I had that
Yep.
correct.
And when we say that there's no increase, I have, and I don't think I mentioned it here because I sort of accelerated my presentation, but I have indicated, it doesn't mean it's free. So in no way was I trying to intend that it was free, nor is the video. But there's no increase because it's renewed at the same level.
For sure.
So it's a no change.
Yeah.
amount.
Yeah, no, I guess my comment was more about the transparency that it's another $65 million investment. That's all. Just
That would be
saying,
correct.
yes, that there is another $65 million spend, and here's what it's going to. The second question that I have is related to the decision to have an off-cycle special, decision for this referendum. So I'm sure you had a choice. Do you put it on the regular election cycle at the fall? Why did you choose to put it off-cycle? What was the reasoning behind that? Because
Yeah,
I've had that question asked multiple times.
It's a good question. Last November, when we had an election, we wouldn't have been in a position to be ready to bring it to the voters at that time. And if we were to wait until this upcoming November, I've been told by our construction managers that it would probably increase the, through inflationary increases by maybe up to $8 million. So there's a financial concern to wait for it as well. And if they were here to respond to that question, they could probably give you a more satisfactory answer. But there are some benefits and a focus on timing for when school districts go to the voters, primarily due to bidding timelines. Everybody in the school business wants to do all their construction between June and the end of August.
Sure.
And that's the
Students aren't
time when
there.
it's the easiest,
Yeah.
and you have the most access. With big projects like this, our construction managers and architects and engineers believe there's some value in the spring elections for bidding timelines and to ensure that we meet that timeline of the fall of 2029 to be able to open our elementary and middle school and hopefully at least part of the high school edition as well.
Okay. Let's see if I had any other ones. Oh, the last one was just, and I think you already covered this, but I just want to make sure I got it right. I mean, you've got open enrollment, which is a much smaller percentage of your overall population, but the 8 cities are Corcoran, Maple Grove, Medicine Lake, Medina, Minnetonka, Orono, Plymouth, and Wayzata. many of those cities are just tiny fractional slices, but the primary cities are Wayzata, Plymouth, Corcoran, is that right?
Yes, Maple Grove. And Medina has grown a lot.
Yeah.
In the last several years. It used to be, well, I think when I came, there were a lot of 5 to 10 acre acreages with one home on them. But now a lot of the property has been sold. A lot of the farmland is adjacent to our anticipated site and location for these schools. So we would anticipate that there would be an acceleration of home building in Medina in the event that we're able to move forward with those schools.
And I guess the last question, then I'll turn it over to anyone else that wants to ask a question. The part 3 of the 3-part question would not, even if it was approved, it requires that big facilities marker at 465 to hit. So like if you get a no on question 2, but a yes on question 3, it does not pass.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. Other questions of Superintendent Anderson?
I've got some follow-ons.
Sir?
What would happen if this referendum failed?
We'd have to do our best to determine why and learn from that. And then we would have to start thinking in terms of what might we do to accommodate the anticipated growth in the future. Some of the alternatives that districts sometimes have looked into is to lease space. We have never felt like that's a really great option because it's not free to lease space. You oftentimes have to do quite a lot of construction and remodeling work with it in order to make it suitable to be a classroom space. And we would have to learn from the feedback in the community. What was it that wasn't, that caused it to not be able to be supported, and then make a new plan from there.
Okay, we are on the Wayzata City Council, work exceedingly hard every year, exceedingly hard to keep the tax levy to a minimum. And, we've worked very hard to get it down under 8% for this year. But again, doing the math, just this levy alone would have increased our city taxes, that proportion of the property tax bill, by an incredible 25%. So I think the people that are out there listening ought to take a very, very careful look at this before they vote in favor of it.
Okay. And I can't respond specifically to the math on that, but I'll seek to learn more and work with our finance director to try to learn more about those numbers that you've cited.
Pro rata distribution based on the tax capacity is always hard for a lot of people to understand because it's not as simple and straightforward for any of the taxing authorities. So
right.
Yeah.
The larger net tax capacity within the large footprint of the school district does have a moderating effect for individual homeowners, which helps for us.
For sure. Other questions of Superintendent Anderson? Thank you for the information. I think it's really important to educate at least our constituent base on this, and I think you've done a good job of explaining it. The second thing is just thank you for your service. I mean, you've been a long tenured leader here in our community. You've been a great partner to the city of Wayzata. I've had numerous personal positive experiences as an elected official with you, Mr. Anderson, over the years. You've always been a champion of our little town and our, moderate contributions to the overall ecosystem of Wayzata. We're lucky that we're the namesake of the district. We're proud of that as well. And certainly high functioning and high impact public schools are part of what make communities great, for sure. But I know that you've put your heart and soul into this job over the last few years. I wish you well in retirement. Sad to see you go. You have big shoes to fill, but you've been an excellent partner to us, whether it be community education, our Panaway project, just about any asset we've ever made of the district, you've been the first to raise your hand to help. So I just want to recognize that. And I can speak from firsthand experience over my 17 years, numerous times that call has come out to you and you're there and always supportive. And I just want to recognize you for that.
Well, it's very kind. Thank you for that. It's been my great pleasure to serve this community and all the wonderful students that we have here. Our own 2 kids graduated from here, one in 2013 and one in 2017. So they both moved on to be responsible tax-paying citizens and do well in the world. So we're happy about that.
Well, we appreciate what you're doing. This is a heavy lift. Anytime you're asking the taxpayer to pull the lever on a significant investment like this. So I appreciate your willingness to help communicate and help us direct questions and communicate on your behalf. So,
You're welcome. Thanks again for the time.
thank you. Okay. Do we have anyone else in the public forum that creeped in here online?
Mr. Mayor, we do not.
Okay. Next is new agenda items. To council, does anyone have new agenda items that we'd like to discuss or bring up here in the future? Hearing none. Next, we'll review the consent agenda. I will read the items on the consent agenda this evening. Approval of the city workshop and regular meeting minutes of February 5th and February 10th, 2026. Approval of the check register, approval of municipal licenses, receipt of the police activity report, receipt of the building activity report, authorization of mayor and city manager to execute engagement letter with LB Carlson for fiscal year 2020 audit services, 2025 audit services, adoption of resolution 1026 appointing a housing and redevelopment commissioner, approval of the second reading and adopting ordinance 865 amending city code chapters 501 general licensing provisions, 502 intoxicating liquor, 503 wine, 504 3.2% malt liquor, and 505 private club liquor. That's basically just a change in the timing of when and how we receive payments to help our restaurant community and those who sell liquor to have a spread out way to pay their fees rather than paying it in the actual downturn of their season. And then adoption of resolution 13/2026, accepting the donation from the Wayzata American Legion. And lastly, approval of a contract renewal with Rainbow Tree Company. So I'll ask, is there a motion to approve the agenda as presented, or do we have any items that need to be pulled or amended for further discussion? Okay, hearing.
Move to
ahead.
approve the consent agenda as outlined, Mr. Mayor.
Great. Do we have a second?
Second that.
Are there any further discussion on this one? All in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed say nay. That motion passes 5-0. Next is our public hearing. We don't have any items on our public hearing this evening, so we'll move on to new business. First up on our agenda is consider adoption of Resolution 11/2026, approving an extension of zoning approvals at 1405 Holdridge Terrace and 15419 and 15429 Wayzata Boulevard East. This project is known as Harbors of Wayzata. And so we'll go through a brief presentation, I believe, from staff on this.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor and Council. I'm going to turn it over to Community Development Director Alex Sharp to give an overview of this item.
Great.
Thank you, City Manager Yeager. As stated, this is a extension request from Harbors of Wayzata, formerly known as Cantissimo when it came through original approvals. It has actually been under 4 different addresses at one time. The 3 active addresses are 15419 and 15429 Wayzata Boulevard and 1405 Holdridge Terrace. The applicant is Carecliff LLC. For location, I chose to zoom out a little bit further and highlight the site as it was a former residential property. So it is in the northeast portion of our community, right along the border of Wayzata and Minnetonka, with Wayzata Boulevard to the north and then Holdridge Terrace. That road name is actually shared for that section, and then Holdridge Terrace to the west. For reference, the Ensley is a project in Minnetonka that we have received significant questions about. We even have some posting on our website. That is actually just across the border into Minnetonka, behind the residential homes on Holdridge Terrace.
Which is not this project.
Not this project,
Right.
just to be very clear,
Yeah, no,
which
for
is
sure.
why I'm wanting to identify the difference. This project is in the red box shown on the site, Cantissimo or Harbors. Because it has been a period of time, I wanted to go back through all of the approvals and the order in which they have occurred, as I think it demonstrates where the project sits today and the best way. So originally, a PUD concept plan was brought forward to the city. This was approved in February of 2022. As with other projects, PUD concept plans then turn into PUD general plans if they are approved. A PUD general plan, variance, and rezoning of the site, as well as a re-guiding, was approved in March of 2023. Their first extension was in February of 2024, and that was a 1-year extension to March 7th of 2025. Shortly thereafter, the actual development agreement and final PUD plan were approved in April of 2024. Another one-year extension was granted in March of 2025, and that is just for the PUD and the variance extension, as the rezoning and the re-guiding have taken place. They've also filed the final plat at this point, so the original 3 properties have been combined into a single parcel. So the parcel has been re-guided into being a institutional, and the rezoning has occurred into an institutional use at this point. Those actions hold regardless of whether this action were to be renewed or not. So it only applies to the PUD and the variance items moving forward, and specifically the PUD agreement. In March, the request right now for March of 2026 is another one-year extension to March 7th of 2027. The applicant has cited financial financing and bringing together partners on the project. Their letter is attached to the council packet, and they have been invited this evening, but they have had some health issues in the past. I do not believe that they have been able to attend this evening. To remind the council of what the site plan looked like, this was a combination of a 2.49 acres of 3 different parcels, re-guided and rezoned from single-family residential, and what was approved was a 40-unit senior living facility, and specifically high level of care or memory care. So low driving, low impact to the neighborhood. The building itself was a 2-story, 18,000 square foot building. For renderings, I've got renderings largely from Wayzata Boulevard on the left-hand side, and then from the rear, as you would see towards the marshland area and the homes to the south. And I could bring those up if council needs for any further discussion. The action before the council this evening would be to adopt Resolution 11-2026 approving the extension of the PUD and variance for 1405 Holdridge Terrace and 15419 and 15429 Wayzata Boulevard East. With that, I stand for questions.
Questions of staff? Go ahead, Mr. Plekish.
Yeah. In the 9 years or so that I've been on council, I've never heard of anybody requesting a 3rd extension. Are you aware that we've done this in the past, gone to 3 extensions?
Mayor, council member, I'm aware of 2 extensions that have occurred. Where this one, the answer is no, I've not heard of the 3rd. There was an incremental action after the first extension with the PUD agreement being approved, or the development agreement being approved. So I've characterized it as 3 extensions as well, but there has been an action between that first extension and a approval granted by council, or action taken by the developer to submit for the PUD agreement.
But there does seem to be some bit of a precedent being set here by extending for a 3rd extension. Am I right?
Correct.
Okay, thanks.
Other questions? Mr. Sorensen?
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, are we going to hear from the applicant, or is this?
Well, I guess he's not here.
Okay, so the questions would be to staff then.
Yeah.
I mean, it'd be great to see this project move ahead. And there's a quick note about the rationale of uncertainty in financial markets. Is there any more to that conversation? I mean, is there a...
I had the same question.
Is there
just a letter?
Is there a statement of confidence? Are they trying to convince us this thing's going to happen? Is it just, oh, hey, by the way, we need another 1 year?
I've had conversations, Mayor, council member, I've had conversations with the developer as recently as about a month ago before their health issues have come up. They've proposed potential changes that they would want to bring back forward, potentially requiring new public hearings, and potentially needing to come back before City Council for whole new approval packages. I haven't seen submissions of those items, so it's difficult for me to answer with the limited information that I have available. I've attempted to invite the applicant here to try to explain that for their case, so that I'm not trying to mischaracterize anything that they've represented. But I have very limited information to be able to share other than what has been presented to me via the letter.
Does the applicant actually own this property?
Yes.
Okay.
can you go back a couple slides? I just want to make sure that I have the sequence of events in my head here about, yes. So you said that there was a change. Is it just a change of named entity, or was there actual an ownership transfer or a different partner brought in during this timeline from February 22 to March 26?
So when I was reviewing the development thank you, Mayor, for that question. When I was reviewing the development agreement, Cantissimo was the original name that everything was applied for under. By the time they were creating LLCs for ownership of the property and marketing, Harbors became the official name that they were going forward with as they were marketing the property.
So it was more just associated with how they're framing the project as is very customary in development. It's not an ownership change or a different partner or whatever.
At the time of
That's your
that
knowledge.
name change,
Yep.
all of the same names were still associated during the development agreement, as with the original application.
Other questions of staff?
Just one quick one. We reviewed a similar extension not that long ago, and the applicant was delinquent on some of the payments that were owed to the city. Is this applicant in good standing with us?
Thank you, Mayor, Councilmember. Yes, this applicant is. In fact, we have received park dedication funds, as you noted in the memo. So we would need to determine where that would be at if this project were not to move forward.
Okay. Thanks.
Any other questions of staff? So maybe bring it back to the council for discussion on how folks are feeling about this. I'm just going to start off with just a general comment, not specific to this project. Unfortunately, this is more common than I would hope in our environment right now. They're not the only applicant that has stated financing as a difficulty in moving forward. Obviously, another senior living facility had that as an issue, but then ultimately defaulted on the property itself, right? And now it's changed hands and there'll be a restart. But there's a couple other projects that we've granted extensions based on the assumption that financing is the issue. I don't know if that's Wayzata specific or a more macro level environment. My guess is it's more macro because you see it in other communities as well. I would provide greater comfort if we could get more details. I mean, we don't have to act on this tonight. We have to act on it quickly and reasonably. But could we ask for more information as a condition of giving us more comfort?
Mr. Mayor, I would chime in and just add that their approvals lapse, I believe, March 6th. And our next council meeting, March 7th. And our next council meeting isn't until March 10th. So that is kind of the
They did put us at the very end
timeline.
of the timeline. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you for that clarification.
I also, just as a other point of clarification, staff had to reach out to notify them in order to be able to apply. So we've been trying to make sure that the approvals have not lapsed proactively.
Do you know what time when we notified them of that
I noted them
ending
60
lapse?
days out and 30 days out from March 7th.
Okay.
All right, so bringing it back to council for discussion, how are folks feeling about this? Who would like to weigh in first?
My questions were intended to be directed at the developer. I would love to understand what hurdles they're facing specifically. If I look at like the interest rates over the past, I just looking at the treasury rates from 2023 till now, it's changed like 40 basis points. I guess the high water mark was about a year ago, and it's come down 60 basis points. I don't know that should make a project economically infeasible. So if there's other hurdles in there, I'd love to know. From a financing standpoint, certainly seeing projects around town being done over the past 3 years. Granted, it's been slower. I don't know if it's specific to this product type or if it's, so I would feel more comfortable acting with more information. Unfortunately, that's not what we have here unless we decide that we'll let it lapse.
Well, is 1 year the only option? Can we provide a bridge period and say, hey, we gave you the benefit of the doubt, but we need more information for us to extend it? Or, I mean, what's driving, is that just our customary practice? Or could we say, hey, we're going to take this off the table for the next 90 days, but we expect you to be here to provide us more information to give us comfort? I don't know if that's possible.
Yeah, or maybe we could approve something for 90 days.
Yeah, that's where I was going. And then,
And then
force them into
requirement comes
revisiting it,
back.
yeah. So I don't know, Mr. City Attorney, if that's possible, or I don't know of any code or policy things that would say that we can't do that.
Mr. Mayor, yeah, that's what I'm looking at, the city code. The provision that's relevant to the request is it says that the application, which is the application for an extension that's been submitted, shall state the facts of the request, show a good faith attempt to utilize the permit, and shall state the additional time being requested. So we have a request, I believe, for 1 year. I don't know that the code would preclude you from granting less than a year if a year is requested. So I don't think we've ever done that before, but I think you have the authority to do that.
Yeah, and again, I don't think it's a preferred method, but if I heard one person, two person, three people say, like to hear from the applicant, at least giving them a path without a wholesale, rejection, I think I have some empathy also for the statement of health issues, right? I mean, that's a real issue for a lot of people that gets in the way, and I want to give them benefit of the doubt versus assuming something different, right? And so,
Yes, and Mr. Mayor, just to give you the full outline of what the code would require, if you went with 90 days, they would have to submit a new application within 30 days of that deadline. So they still have to meet that under the code.
yeah, but I think,
Yeah.
yes, true, but I
Just
think if we're
saying.
really clear in our direction is, we want to give you the benefit of the doubt, but we need to hear from you beyond the letter that you've given. I think if we're really clear, they're going to understand that we need more information to get comfortable about this. It's certainly not any way to try to trigger anything other than more information. And I think if we're really clear about that, that to me feels reasonable. But it's not my decision, it's our decision collectively.
Could I ask maybe an obvious question, which is, what is our fear? Or what information are we looking for that we would find acceptable to grant this? And what information would we not see that we would not think this extension is acceptable? So as I think of it, this is a valuable service to our community. And I'm just curious what you all see as the downfalls of giving this applicant another year to secure their financing and get their shovels in the ground. Not to sound condescending, that's a genuine question.
I was just looking for a path to make sure that we had options. That was the only reason why I suggested it, just to make sure that if we knew all our options available to us. To answer your question specifically, I think the vagueness of a letter and a refusal to appear just causes me to question the viability of the project. It's just as simple as that.
Okay.
Even when we've had other applicants, we had, at minimum, one of their representatives here, right? And so it just gives me a little bit of pause that, hey, it's simple, appear or designate someone to appear, amplify your reasons, and then that would give me comfort.
Understood, just, that was helpful, I appreciate it.
Yeah, I would just add that a little bit. I think kind of their lackadaisical approach to how they've approached this and the fact that we had to let them know that they need to file raises some concerns. And they really haven't made a compelling reason other than maybe one simple statement. So I think Councilman McDonald, I think it's raising all our eyebrows a bit if there's a way to, this isn't a hot site. So, you look at what the alternatives are. If it were, a prime site downtown, you may look at it a little different. So you'd like to give them the benefit of the doubt. But it would be nice for them to, it would be nice to hear from them and kind of understand better why they're asking for the extension, because it's quite vague.
Yeah, and I would agree with that. And I also am cautious about creating precedent of, well, we'll just continue, like, if projects, you can bring a project in and develop it whenever you want and just keep kicking the can down the road without very, more specific information about why it's been difficult to get this project going in the past 3 years.
Yeah, and with that said, I mean, I think I'm stating the obvious. We're giving this applicant the benefit of the doubt, or we wouldn't even be talking about an option to get more information. So it's not like we're being obtuse about this and saying, hey, arbitrarily, we're just not going to allow this. We're exploring options to give them a path, right?
Yeah.
So-
Well, in that spirit, I think 90 days doesn't feel like enough time. I look at this site and this use differently than if it were a real prominent site that would be a little more noticeable or a little add some adverse effects to the community. So at first blush, I didn't think granting this extension was that controversial. You guys are making some really good points, but at the same time, I think from what I understood, I think from the city attorney at 90 days, it feels like maybe then that only actually gives them 30 to get them stuff figured out. Did I understand that?
Mayor and council member, I don't think that's quite the way I'd put it. I think they would just have to get together within 30 days before the expiration of the 90 days. So within 60 days, they would have to file for another extension. So that's really what they'd have to do. And I think it's gathering the information that council members have expressed they'd like to see and hear from the applicant in person, more information about how they've made a good faith attempt to utilize the approval, but haven't been able to, more details on the financing. I think it'd be pretty straightforward. It's not like they have to prepare a big presentation or anything.
Something. No,
Yeah,
they
I
didn't
mean,
for this either.
frankly, just being here to answer questions would probably be all they need to do with, be armed with the information that'll be responsive to the statements that council has made. So that's all I meant, Councilmember
Okay,
McDonald.
that clarification is helpful.
So that brings out another question for me is, if we were to deny this tonight, what is the next step for this applicant?
Mayor, Councilmember, I can't answer that. It would be a start over with all approvals. For the PUD variance, they would need to come back. The only approval that would for sure stand is a re-guiding of the property that has already occurred. The PUD and institutional side of things that has occurred in the past with that would likely then would lapse with this project. So they would need to go back before Planning Commission for public hearing, two meetings with that, and bring all their design deviations and variances back for re-review.
I would be okay with shortening the extension, but I'd want it to be longer than the 90 days because, if there's a health crisis, I have to feel a bit more compassion to that. If the health crisis is serious, I can see why just being reminded by city staff and just writing off a quick email, hey, what can I do? Can I get 12 months? I have XYZ going on. So I feel we're maybe not expecting that this would set a precedent or be a real tough hurdle for them to get over. So for what it's worth, I think a longer extension is better.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I think we're just asking them to come back and talk to us and explain kind of why they're asking for it is really all we're asking for. I don't have a real issue with what the time frame is. My sense, though, is the shorter the better. I mean, maybe the health issue is a reason to make it a little bit longer, but I don't think we need to drag it out.
So I would interject again, if we were to table this today and had it come back in 2 weeks or whatever our next meeting is, I guess a week away, but is that enough time still for us to vote in a year extension? Or it's not, it's tonight or not, nothing?
Mayor, unfortunately, no, the approval lapses on March 7th. So
But when's our next city council meeting?
March 10th.
March 10th.
10th, okay. Well, for what it's worth, I'm not inclined to approve this. I mean, at the least, they could have had somebody here. I mean, I'm not trying to be insensitive, but, we reached out to them to remind them, and it doesn't sound like they've been very communicative to us over the past few years. And, you know, they should have had somebody here to answer the questions, so I'm not inclined to vote for this tonight.
Okay. Anyone else like to weigh in so we can kind of move this along in one way or the other?
I do have one more question.
Sure.
Are the rights under the approval, are those transferable to a different developer?
Mayor, Councilmember, yes, the rights run with the land, not with the property owner.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, I'm inclined to give a short-term extension. I'm not opposed to the project, and I'd love to see it move forward, but I have hesitations about not showing up and not answering questions and it doesn't have to be a long, like, these are all questions. My questions are, they could walk into the room right now without preparing anything, and their historical knowledge of the project, they'd be able to answer all the questions that I would have. I would hope. If not, then I'd have greater concerns. But I'm in favor of a shorter term extension of some sort, whether that's 90 days or 120 days. But I would like to keep that shorter in nature.
You weighed in a little bit, or would you like to amplify what?
Yeah, I did weigh in a bit, and 120 sounds better than 90 to me. So I feel that gives them a bit more time and to, find a spokesperson if someone is unable to be here due to health issues.
Okay. Mr. Sorensen?
Yeah, I'd be fine with the 120.
Okay. I would too. I mean, I only suggested as an option just to not give a hard no that then, potentially has some of the implications that you talked about. So, I mean, my hope is if they watch the record of this, that our intent is to give them the benefit of the doubt, just ask for some more simple information, grant them an extension for a reasonable period of time, answer the questions. If we're okay with those answers, I'm assuming that we would grant them the longer extension. So I'd be supportive of 120 days. So just moving it along, I've got one nay potentially, and then 4 that seem open to it. So Mr. City Attorney.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. So if you do entertain or ask for a motion that would modify the one in the packet, I would just recommend that it be read as follows on your screen, and then append at the end with the modification that the approval run until June?
July 5th, 2026.
July 5th, yeah. That's
120 days from March 7th, 2026.
Okay. So I would accept a motion to adopt Resolution 11, 2026, and approving extension of zoning approvals at 1405 Holdridge Terrace and 15419 and 15429 Wayzata Boulevard East, modified that would expire on July 5th, 2026. I think with that, I just want to then say it's just all about how you communicate it to the applicant. I mean, I would want you to represent that there's support for this, just need more information, which is why we took this pass, so that it doesn't become, adversarial in any way. It's just a request for more information. And since we didn't have good options, we came up with a way to be more flexible to keep it moving along. So I'll go back to the resolution that I read with city attorney's guidance. Could I get that motion?
I'll make that motion, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, great. Could I get a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed?
No.
Okay, so that passes 4-1. Thank you for that, and thanks for, spitballing some ways to keep it moving along without a hard no. So next on our agenda is consider adoption of Resolution 12, 2026, approving a PUD plan unit development, general plan, and other related requests at 1022 and 1042 Wayzata Boulevard East, which is the Walzer project. So I'll turn it over to staff, I believe.
Yep, I'll turn it over to Community Development Director Sharp for the presentation.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Interim City Manager Yeager. As stated, this is for 1022, 1042 Wayzata Boulevard East. It is for planned development, general plan, preliminary plat, final plat, 5 variances, and 2 design deviations. Sometimes I want to add partridge, but This is from owner and applicant Walzer Real Estate LLC. So for this evening's actions, I do want to break this apart as there will be some future actions required by the City Council. So the current actions under review are the PUD general plan, the preliminary plat, 5 variances, which include required parking stall variance, parking setback variance, fence height variance, and then fence height and opacity within the front yard variance, and an access separation variance. I will go through each of those individually. I've got specific slides for them. If you do have questions, feel free to interject as we go through, as it may help with the discussion. There are also 2 design deviations, also slides on that. These include a 6-foot wide planting strip between a private sidewalk in the building and street trees not being provided in a separation of 26 feet. And again, I will highlight that and where that is on the site. There are future actions, as I noted, required. That will be the final plat. That again only comes before City Council. Vacation of a drainage and utility easement. I will go through that as well to preliminarily introduce that. And then the final development agreement and PUD agreement. For those not as familiar with the site, this is the current site of Mulberry's, former site of a gas station on the western parcel. It is actually 2 separate parcels. Bordering it to the east is Central Avenue South. To the north is Wayzata Boulevard East. To the west is Superior Boulevard and Huntington Avenue, which is a dead-end street with a turnaround and is essentially a parking area or public parking area to the west. The site is guided for mixed-use commercial and residential, and it is zoned C3 Service District, which is our primary commercial district along Wayzata Boulevard. As I stated, this is 2 separate parcels totaling 0.88 acres in total, with a number of different types of uses surrounding it. So we've got Colonial Square to the northeast, we've got single-family homes to the south, realty building to the west, and housing throughout the entire neighborhood. There's also significant grade change, particularly as you go east-west and north-south on this site. For existing conditions, on the eastern parcel, or left side of the screen currently, is Mulberry's current use, unplatted parcel currently, with Mulberry's currently in operation. On the western parcel, or right side of the screen, is a vacant parcel, former gas station. All tanks have been removed. So right now it sits vacant as a gravel pad. The demo plan is to demolish both buildings on site, the single building on site, and the former building at the gas station has already been demolished, as you saw in the photo before. The preliminary plat is for both parcels. The reason why I've highlighted the parcel to the western side of the screen is that parcel has already been platted. And when it was platted in 2023, there was a dedication of drainage utility easements, which is a standard condition around the perimeter of the parcel. These are the easements that are being proposed to be vacated at this time and then rededicated when a new final plat would be brought forward. Again, council's not taking action on the vacation this evening, and so the vacation wouldn't actually occur now, but I'm wanting to set up that future discussion so that you're familiar with it. This is the actual vacation exhibit. For ease of being able to describe the legal description of these easements, they are proposing to vacate all of the drainage utility easements in association with that western parcel. They would then dedicate new perimeter easements around the combined parcel if the final plat were brought forward. It's staff's goal to bring all of those actions together as one item before City Council. To do so, one of the things that council should be aware of is that I will need to schedule a public hearing on an agenda that will go on consent, where the public hearing for the vacation will be held at a council meeting, and at that time we'd hope to bring back the final plat, the vacation, and the PUD and development agreement as one single item so that you can comprehensively review that. That is contingent upon this PUD general plan being approved and moved forward this evening, however. This is the proposed final plat, again, sharing more for context for this evening. The main piece that I wanted to highlight here is to show you where the vacation and why it would need to occur, and that is in the green circled area. They would be then rededicating the easements around the perimeter of that new parcel, but that center portion would go right through the proposed building. For this plan, one of the first steps, as I noted, was a PUD concept plan, which is a standard practice for many developers. This PUD concept plan was brought forward with a 7,845 square foot new dealership on primarily the western parcel, and the Mulberry's existing dry cleaner would be significantly reduced in size, but remain in place and remain in use. This came through Planning Commission in 2025 with a unanimous recommendation of approval, and then through City Council with a split vote, but ultimately a approval of the concept plan. Hearing the comments from that concept plan, Walser has resubmitted a new site plan, which is before you now, that is actually increasing the dealership size by about 1,000 square feet, removing Mulberry's as a use entirely on the site, reducing the overall building footprints on the site, and reducing the overall impervious surface on the site from the concept plan. The service bays and amount of activity proposed largely stays the same. However, it expands over both parcels now. When reviewing the project, staff generally compiles this table in part to demonstrate what the requirements for the district are, but also for our review. The item that I would like to significantly note on this is where they are seeking the variance is in the parking setbacks. That is where 10 feet are required, and south side around 4 to 5 feet are what are being provided. So the variance is for that parking setback, but I will go through that in future slides. The first variance, as you're going through and counting, is for a parking stall variance. They have, the site plan proposes 29 surface parking stalls and 20 garage parking stalls. So a total of 49 stalls. However, in order to meet the parking requirement, traditionally, the city has required that all parking stalls be publicly available. Because 20 of those parking stalls are contained underground, a variance in the total number of parking stalls is required. However, they are on site. So the applicant has applied for the variance at staff's recommendation, as it, while code isn't necessarily explicit, it has been consistent practice that we have had that parking to be publicly available. Slightly getting off of my numbering here, so we're actually at variances 2, 3, and 4, or 1, 2, 3 on this slide. The first is the 6-foot parking stall setback variance. This is on the southern side of the property, and for those that are trying to keep an eye out, this is southeast corner up against the apartments and Central Avenue. So Central Avenue is the driveway off the east side that it's gaining access from. They are looking to expand the parking lot closer to the southern property line. 10-foot are required. They're providing around 4.28 feet, so they need a 6-foot variance to round things up. For ease, that's where staff obtained that 6-foot versus the 5-foot. Additionally, 2 additional variances are being required: an 8-foot tall screening fence where 6-foot tall is required, or a 2-foot variance. And then, because this is actually considered the front of the building, Central Avenue is, as it's the narrowest road frontage, that's how code defines front versus side. They need a variance to extend that fence into what is considered the front yard. Within front yards, code requires that you have opacity of fences to only be 50%, and you're only allowed a 6-foot tall fence. I'm sorry, a 4-foot tall fence. And so they're needing variance for the height and for the opacity, essentially to provide screening. Walser chose to keep these items in their application at the request of neighbors. They could potentially, these are the 2 variances that if council did not support, could be dropped from the application without substantially changing the site plan.
Director Sharp?
Yes.
I'm just a little bit confused with this yellow circle. Is that the only place where the parking setback variance is?
I was highlighting the distance there with the yellow circle, it would be for the entire stretch of this parking piece. I'm just highlighting that 4.28 distance foot.
Appreciate that.
Yep.
Sorry to interrupt.
It didn't want too many overlapping circles and trying to highlight specific items.
And the same
Understood.
goes for the green.
The green is for the front, just for the front yard portion though. So that is just for the area that is in front of the building. The blue applies for the height of the fence for the entire distance. Now, where a piece does change from that, I'm just going to touch into it now, is they've actually, at the request of Planning Commission, or a condition of the Planning Commission, extended that fence through the entire rear property line. That would actually extend as their site plan changes. So there are areas that it will not be required, but it would be anywhere that it would be less than that, over 8 foot for that entire section.
So are we asking questions as we go along here?
Please.
So go back a slide. Couple of things. I'm assuming that the 8-foot tall variance is for the benefit of the neighbors. Is that correct?
Mayor, council member, largely yes. That was at request of the neighbors for the benefit of the neighbors.
And the building, it says here is existing building. I thought that was an empty lot that had a big drop down. What is that building?
Oh, I'm sorry. That's the apartment complex to the south?
They were that close?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
I don't have their distance to the property line. That part wasn't surveyed, but they are quite close. That's an existing, I believe from the public hearing, the property owner had stated that it may have existed in the early 1900s.
So from what I recall from the Planning Commission, the opacity was agreed that it was going to go the whole way for the neighbors. Is that not how this application reads?
Yes, so the opacity at 100% opaque would apply for the whole for the entire fence. However, the variance is only required in the front yard. Yes, there is a complexity there, apologies. In a rear yard or side yard, you're allowed to have a 100% opaque fence. In a front yard, we have requirements about total opacity not being allowed to exceed 50%.
Okay, appreciate it. Sorry again.
This is why I wanted the questions to come up during the presentation, is there are complexities to the review.
Alex, just one more there. You may have covered this, I missed it though. The curb cut that exists to service the dry cleaner after Central is kind of, I mean, it's like immediately as you pass through the intersection on Central. Where does that fall out in the context of this?
Let's go to this slide, Mayor.
Okay, perfect.
So this is the access and loading and the final variance. So existing access points that are being removed are shown in the purple X's. So there's an existing access point very, very close, as you noted, to Central and Wayzata Boulevard East. That is now being proposed to be removed, and the concept plan, it was going to remain.
Because the dry cleaner was going to exist.
Correct. Now, there are only 2 access points being proposed. I would note that you cannot traverse from this access point to this access point due to significant grade changes between. You will be able to see that in some of the renderings coming up. So this access point remains. It meets the 40-foot spacing required by code, no variance required. This is the access point off of Huntington. This is your 5th and final variance being requested, and it is remaining in the same space and largely the same configuration. However, it is being completely removed down to complete base. When you completely remove, it is best to apply for the variance and make sure that you, rather than rely on a legal non-conforming status. So it is going in the same place, same configuration, not any closer, likely some grade change to affect how the site is entered, but not significantly altered from existing conditions.
But that access point is not for cars, though. I mean, that's a walkway that goes to Huntington.
I'm going to go back to the aerials. So right here is an access point for cars onto Huntington from this site that is existing. Let's see if we can see it here. Yeah, you can kind of see this entrance right here.
Okay, so you're talking about at the north side of the property.
Correct.
Got it. That's got it.
There are actually 2 access points on the site from Huntington. Currently, one is proposed to be closed, and one is remaining.
Yeah, it's just confusing because, I mean, that's not signed as Huntington when you're going down Wayzata Boulevard.
No, it is not. It's used as parking, which is why I was trying to
It was
highlight that
left
at
there
that point.
when that building, which is now known as Edina Realty, was built, and that was vacated, so that makes more sense. I just was missing that context.
It's still, Huntington is still technically
Totally,
right of way.
get it, yep.
So,
If you look at the plat, it's still there.
You've actually reminded me of a point that I did want to make with the parking variance. The stalls on Huntington are not permitted to be used as required parking for this site, but they would remain in use, and technically are public parking, but largely used by the Edina Realty building, as you noted. That was an item that came up in discussion with Planning Commission.
Does the Edina Realty building have adequate parking per code?
Mayor, Councilmember, I have not done completed a full review of that site. It's an existing condition. It's got some long-standing odd agreements with use of that right-of-way. They actually maintained it for a period of time and may still. So there are some complexities there. If you're interested, I could certainly look it up in the future.
Okay, thanks.
One of the larger concerns on the site during the concept plan was how deliveries would function on site, so I wanted to make sure to put this in the presentation. There are no variances required. They meet code provisions for a turnaround for a fire truck vehicle or a delivery vehicle. The applicant has additionally stated that the size of vehicle required by code is actually larger than what they would utilize for their deliveries of vehicles. Interior plans are largely to determine parking requirements and for illustrative purposes to identify how the space is going to be used for council. As you can see, they have 6 stalls and 4 showroom spaces, and then the lower portion of the building is either storage or parking. The facade meets all of our design requirements. It is largely brick in nature, and white brick in nature is being proposed. It does have the wainscoting on the bottom of the building, and then a aluminum composite panel above entryways as an accent material. Code also requires, or the design standards also require, that at least that all sides of the building have at least 25% glass, all exceed 25% glass. I'll go through just for illustrative purposes. This is the west elevation, or what would face Huntington. This is east, or what would face Central. The south elevation is what would face the residential neighbor to the south and somewhat of the rear yard of the single-family dwellings. And then the north elevation is what would face Wayzata Boulevard. One item of note is that the northern face actually hits 45% glass, so exceeding that 25 by a fair amount along a prominent roadway face. These are building perspectives and renderings from different angles to allow you to conceptually view the plans. Additional renderings in color were provided and presented to the Planning Commission. I actually have some additional renderings that were not presented to the Planning Commission as well that we want to provide to the City Council. Our common practice has been to not share new materials with City Council that the Planning Commission didn't have the ability to review. However, some of these relate directly to Planning Commission recommendations or requirements or conditions of their finding and recommendation. So these were the original renderings, and we'll go through these briefly. Principally, this would be from the left-hand screen would be from Wayzata Boulevard. Right-hand screen would be from Central, looking in with that apartment building that I noted on the left-hand side, and then their lower level, and this is where you can see that significant grade change between the two different lots. This would be from the cul-de-sac on Huntington and showing that it is closed with a pedestrian stairway. They have updated this because this was the rendering that they'd shown, but their site plan did not originally share this fencing. They have since updated their site plan, added that fencing throughout the rear side, and we have those additional renderings that I was going to note. Before getting into that, wanted to go through some of the design deviations. So there are 2 design deviations being required. And I understand that that these can be confusing, so again, feel free to ask questions as I go throughout. The design requirements require that between a private sidewalk or public sidewalk, that in front of the building, you have a 6-foot buffer between the building itself and the sidewalk. That is largely for seating areas or landscaping, is what the design requirements specifically cite would go in that area. When interpreting that section of code, you can see that there's a bump out for the front entrance of the building here and here. I determined that this section did not require that design deviation. However, the section from here to here, around a 25 to 30 foot section, does require the design deviation. And then for this section here, they have greater than 6 feet. So the design deviation for that separation between sidewalk and building only applies to this location here, not to the public sidewalk, which is up on Wayzata Boulevard. The configuration of the sidewalk is largely being dictated due to grades and ADA compliance. The ability to go directly from their front door out to Wayzata Boulevard due to grades would not be ADA compliant, would require stairs. Additionally, this was the most efficient for impervious surface coverage to actually gain access to their primary door from their parking lot and their front door out to Wayzata Boulevard. The second design deviation is created by similar constraints in this very tight section of the site plan. Our design requirements requires trees along public frontages with spacing no greater than 26 feet between them. The section from approximately this tree here to this tree here exceeds the 26 feet. That section in total is around 80 to 90 feet. It's somewhere in that range. So it is significantly more. However, this section is where some of the most significant grades drop off between one site and the other. Additionally, it is getting constrained by multiple different forces of the public sidewalk, the private sidewalk, their private building. So there are pieces that are mitigating factors to that. There are potential solutions that they could have come up with. Those would have included largely, though, shrinking the building footprint.
So, okay, if we ask a question here.
Yeah, absolutely.
On the 6-foot buffer issue, isn't there some requirement that this building be so many feet from property line or curb line?
So our design handbook and our design requirements emphasize placing buildings as close to their setback line as possible. The design handbook actually specifically recommends, when adjacent to public frontages, that you place the building within the first 10 to 15 feet of the property line. In this case, they are right at their 10-foot setback. So they're within that 10 to 15 feet. Design requires, then that part is a recommendation. The requirement is that all parking and all trash and refuse areas are behind the building. So anywhere behind this frontage, from this front area, is where all parking must be. So in our design requirements, it is not listed as a code section, but is within the handbook for that 10 to 15 foot placement of the building when adjacent to public frontages. Does that answer the question?
Sort of. So what's that mean? I mean, does that mean we are encouraging them to push the building closer to the street?
Correct,
and
yes.
That why, therefore, we have this variance issue?
The design requirements encourage buildings to be pushed to the street, yes.
All right.
That is why we have a design deviation issue. It's not technically a variance. These are a different set of criteria. I have all those criteria for you later that we'll go through.
And is there a solution to the tree issue, or is it just a matter of it'd be expensive to deal with somehow by building tree wells and grates and that type of thing?
So speaking with the city forester, the tree wells wouldn't function well in this area. However, if you did shrink the building's footprint, you may be able to fit additional items, including the 6-foot buffer between the private sidewalk and the building. The reason why tree wells wouldn't potentially work well in this area is the grade changes would be relatively significant, and you'd end up with some very odd planting styles through this section, because there's a lot of competing forces going on within this limited section of the site.
Of which there's no trees there today and never have been.
Yeah, I don't know that there have been within
limited
that
number.
section. Yeah. There may have been prior to when I'm available to.
Not when the gas station was operational.
Can I ask a question about that? Because I don't totally understand. Will there be significant grading changes done? Because as I look at like where these trees, it's flat along that whole, along
Good
Wayzata
question.
Boulevard.
There won't be significant grading changes done, but the grade actually down into the site is more significant than the eye appears when you're viewing the site. And the further west you get, the easier it becomes. As you traverse east on this site, the grade does start to taper off down towards central. And to get a steady building pad within that, they're leveling pieces out from east to west. So, and north to south. So you end up with a kind of a three-way grading where on the western side of the circle on this screen, significantly easier than as you move east.
Okay.
So a question on this too, if it weren't for the private sidewalk being inserted here, would there need to be a design deviation?
No, there would not need to be the design deviation. We do require that the front yard, or that the front entrance front on Wayzata Boulevard though, and that there be sidewalk to connect to Wayzata Boulevard.
Okay, so it's a necessary feature.
Correct.
Yeah. I would also think that maybe a dealership like a Lamborghini wouldn't want a regular public street to go right into their front door. That's,
I would leave
you don't
that
need
for
to
the
answer that,
applicant.
yeah, okay. And also on that same slide, you show the red, ellipse there that says that's where the design deviation is required, but not that little blue or black or whatever it is stretch there. Why is that? Why is there a bifurcation there?
This was an interpretation by myself as staff that once you hit a front entrance, you have to have a sidewalk go to a front door at some point. Otherwise, it's not meeting its intent.
Okay.
I could have made the interpretation that the section from here to around here where the front door starts required a deviation as well, but
Yeah.
we're talking around 3 to 4 feet, a single square of concrete that may be for planter, bench, bike rack, etc., that we also require.
Okay, thanks.
And Director Sharp, one more piggyback question to Councilmember Plekish. I can't help but noticing there is no buffer between the public sidewalk and Wayzata Boulevard, and I think that's a really big miss for the community. Is there an option for them to combine the public-private sidewalk, add that buffer, plant the mandatory trees, and still have access to the front door that way? Also, I can't imagine this is really the front door that anyone would use. I assume their clients will drive. They claim they're flying in from out of town to shop here, so wouldn't they park and walk to this entrance on the west side? So I guess that's a two-part question. If you could.
Thank you, Mayor, Councilmember, and I may unfortunately make it a bit of a three-part question.
Okay.
So to answer your question, yes, there could be a way of doing that. This is a preliminary plat, and during a preliminary plat, as long as there is a nexus between the combination of property and the condition being presented, the council could add additional conditions to the resolution for combination or right-of-way. To answer the original question on the buffer, that is actually outside of the site and within the Wayzata Boulevard corridor. And the city has completed a Wayzata Boulevard corridor study that has encouraged some of those buffers to occur, as you're referring to. There is not currently design. The county is looking to solicit bids for that design right now, and it's projected out to potentially as far as 2030. Without the design of that corridor, this actual design could be in significant flux of what the council sees, but it is outside of the purview of this specific application.
But if the applicant was so inclined to, I would argue, be good community members for one of the most valued asset to the community, which is walkability, if they were so inclined to make that that decision on their own and add that buffer between the road and the public sidewalk, and then somehow combine the public sidewalk with the private sidewalk, and then have the appropriate plantings. Would that be allowed?
That, yes, that council member, mayor, council member, that could be possible. That could also be, we could list it as a condition this evening. I can bring up that section within the resolution. I've got that available for your review. We would likely want to see where that easement would need to be negotiated as part of the development agreement and PUD agreement at that later date, but we could add it as a condition for the resolution on the preliminary plat this evening.
Yeah, and we'll give the applicant a chance to talk about what their design considerations were, so that we have a balance of, an option, and we should hear why they designed it.
Completely appropriate, but this is still, this part of Wayzata Boulevard is owned by the city, right? Or is this still county? Where does that?
This section is largely within county, over to the full eastern side is county. So recall that there are two separate parcels.
Yeah.
The eastern side actually is within county jurisdiction. The western side, I do not believe is. And this is going to be right on that line of where that jurisdiction lies. As it's not part of this application, I don't have that marked.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Before moving on, were there any other questions? I don't want to skip past.
I'll just weigh in that I think that's a great idea. Well, I think that's a great idea to combine the public sidewalk with a private sidewalk, if that's something that we can do, and then move that sidewalk further away from the street, which improves aesthetics and safety. So I don't know what's involved in that. Sounds a little complicated maybe, but if that can be done, I think everybody would win. So great idea.
Thank you. I'm a walker.
So your packet includes more robust comments from the city engineer and city forester. For ease of presentation, I've tried to break them down to basically a bullet point list of high-level items. The first comment was about truncated domes. These are the ADA compliant domes along Wayzata Boulevard. This has actually been corrected within the plans. This was, instead of having two individual squares, they must make the circular fashion so that somebody couldn't accidentally walk into the intersection of Central and Wayzata Boulevard. Our design requirements require 7-foot sidewalks, not 5 originally. The applicant had heard from Hennepin County to put in a 5-foot sidewalk along Wayzata Boulevard. Again, our requirements require 7. Stormwater management report for the eastern half of the site was not originally completed during the concept plan, so that needed to be expanded and is under review currently. Additional stormwater review for roof drains was sought. It actually has been provided, and the city engineer has no further comment on that. Removal of existing water service and removal of existing sewer service. Apologies, used the same word twice. That has been acknowledged by the applicant as items that will need to happen during the building permit process. And then and actually I didn't do it twice. We have 2 separate water services to the 2 separate sites, and only 1 sanitary because that was actually removed as part of the gas station. So all of those will need to be removed and complete reinstallation of a larger size will need to be done during the building permit process if the project were to be approved.
For item 2, we require 5, and you're saying it's...
Sorry, Hennepin County required 5.
Got it.
The city design standards require 7.
Got it.
If I misspoke, apologies.
No, just want to clarify.
City forester comments. The trees shown on the plans need to be updated, specifically the species diversity mix. My next slide actually presents the new updated diversity mix. They are now meeting that. It has switched requirements from actual fee required to more escrow. As you become more compliant, your escrow always goes up and your fee goes down. 7-foot sidewalk seems to be mentioned again, and unfortunately, there are other comments that repeated itself. My apologies for the technical difficulty on that. The other items from the city forester report have been now met through the revised landscape plan that was submitted on 2/24. It does not correct the design deviation of that 26-foot spacing that I had mentioned previously, however. Species mix are over on the right-hand side if that's what you're looking at.
And then the current site has a limited number of trees on it now, correct?
Very few, and most were elm trees and needing to be removed. So the site is largely vacant, or trees are in extremely poor condition. They've got a couple trees that are looking to be retained in the landscape islands over here that may or may not survive.
It's a significant net pickup.
As required by the city's notification policy, a neighborhood meeting was held for this project. It was held on July 22, and that was meant to be 2025. 5 residents attended. Issues discussed included noise concerns and fencing and screening. Public comments, we actually noticed out further than we do for standard properties for this one. So normally we do 500 feet. In this instance, we did 750 feet. There are now 5 public comments that have been received. 3 were contained within your packet. 2 were received within since the packet has been published. Public hearing was held by the Planning Commission on January 26, 2026. 4 residents spoke, largely responding to the fence request, which I'll present the additional renderings shortly. Stormwater improvements were requested. Questions on impacts to Huntington, specifically parking and how they would be utilized. The traffic report was made available and would continue to be made available for the owners of the property to the west. And then noise, traffic, and safety were significant concerns. And then there was a general support at the public hearing from the public. However, there are public comments in opposition contained within your packet. Again, as I kind of highlighted, we don't traditionally present new renderings because we want to make sure that the council sees the same materials as the Planning Commission. However, as this was a required condition from the Planning Commission, we are presenting these updated items. As you can see, they've shared these renderings with, I'm sorry, you can't see this, but they've shared these renderings with the neighbors already in an effort to continue their outreach. They've extended the fence along the southern property line, and you can see where it's at that 100% opacity. Additionally, they've extended it.
That big white building on the left, that's
the apartment.
That's the apartment building.
Yep.
Just right there at the fence line.
Yes, and there's a retaining wall between the fence and that building as well. Mm-hmm. There's significant amount of activity within that area as well. This is a redevelopment site.
So there's going to be a retaining wall that's not pictured?
It's already present and either staying in place or being repaired. So you can see the edges of it here, and then the fence in itself is actually on top of or blocking the view of in this rendering.
So the rendering's not all that accurate? Kind of.
I would want the applicant to speak to how their rendering is playing with that wall. There's a wall right there that varies which property line it is actually on. So for portions of it looking, because I've spoken with the nearby resident, for portions of that retaining wall, it is on the apartment property, and for portions of that retaining wall, it is on the subject property, sometimes split evenly. So it's right on the line, unable to determine full ownership. Walzer has agreed to repair as needed and improve the drainage of that retaining wall, as there is significant stormwater damage to it.
Do you know if that apartment building has windows on the north side?
I believe that it does.
Oh, whoa, okay. I have a Google Street View here.
Yep, there are times I wish I could bring that up for you. Other items that the Planning Commission had required was the extension of that fence all the way over to Huntington. This is what that rendering was attempting to convey. That was largely to help prevent any additional light and noise from Wayzata Boulevard going into the Huntington neighborhood to the south. For Planning Commission recommendation, at the public hearing on January 2026, they unanimously directed staff to prepare a report and recommendation of approval. We then brought that back on February 9th, where they affirmed that decision. But members of the Planning Commission did provide some additional comments and recommendations that were not necessarily voted on by the Commission, that the City Council consider potential additional requirements or conditions being added onto the resolution, specifically in regards to the use of the property for noise, impacts to neighborhoods, use of the vehicles for tours, the use of used car sales within the site, to specifically try to limit this to that boutique dealership that is identified within the application. So commissioners individually specifically recommended that council consider those and consider any additional conditions they may want to include, or considerations as the development agreement proceeds through the process for your next step, which would be reviewing that development agreement in a draft format. The next several slides are all of the criteria. I'm going to be reading just the top portion. For your deliberations, I wanted to leave these items in. They are also contained within your packet. They will likely be a source of for the City Council during your discussion, but I don't want to go through any individual or every individual point unless sought by the City Council. So when reviewing PUDs, in general, what Planning Commission and City Council are charged to do are to evaluate the effects of the proposed PUD on the health, safety, and welfare of residents in the surrounding area. When reviewing preliminary plats, the City Council shall consider the possible adverse effects of the preliminary plat based on its judgment with the following factors, and this will actually be 2 slides, but please note this is not actually limited to just these factors. When reviewing variances, these must meet the practical difficulty standards. So not only must they be in harmony with the zoning and consistent with the comp plan, they must meet the 4 provisions, all of the 4 provisions below. Where this differs from the preliminary plat and the PUD is that all 4 of these conditions must be met in opposite with those others. Any single piece of those they may not meet, but it may meet the overall intent of those 2 items. And we're reviewing design deviations. This is City of Wayzata specific criteria. So these are not set by state statute. These are contained within our code, and it is essentially, does the deviation, is the negative impact created by that deviation outweighed by one or more of the following positive factors? So when reviewing whether the deviation for separation between trees or that 6 foot between sidewalk, are there other factors that you gain additional positivity for? And with that, the action before the commission or before the council this evening would be to adopt resolution 12-2026. The applicant is present and is prepared to make a presentation as well, and I am available for any other questions you may have.
Yeah, let's see if we have any other questions of staff at this time, and then we'll turn it over to the applicant and then allow questions there and then bring it back for discussion. Are there any other questions of staff at this particular time? Okay, hearing none, I just wanted to note that the 2 individuals that were supplemental to our packet was an additional comment from Mr. Shaw, and then a net new comment from Mr. Johnson, who lives on Central, directly adjacent to the apartment building, or one door down on Central. So just wanted that noted for the record. Sometimes I hear from folks that say, well, did you ever read my additional information? So I wanted to call it out by name to know that we acknowledging their additional information in the packet. So,
Mayor, could I ask one more question of staff? The access spacing variance, that's the one that they're just redoing, but it's legal non-conforming, so they'll, yes, that one. Now, we require 40 feet, and this is a pretty significant difference. With such a busy road, kind of a confusing intersection, could you explain to me, try to give me a brief explanation of why we require 40 feet and the purpose of that requirement, so that I can evaluate better if not having the 40 feet seems like it would impact a busy thoroughfare.
Certainly, Mayor, Councilmember, I'm going to do this with my very best ability not to present any form of bias, but when I'm evaluating this as a planner, this access spacing existing offers great concern on the eastern side, the existing one. When you have a spacing that close to an intersection, the propensity for accidents, particularly side swipes and even driver side swipes, which are the highest mortality rate accident, are increased by a significant margin. Where that is largely determined is just the amount of time individuals have to react as someone else makes an action. These are why we have the 40-foot spacing, and actually that is fairly short still. For lower traffic roadways, there is less impact to that. In the instance of Huntington, specifically, I've spoken with the city engineer and the assistant city engineer on this access point. It doesn't present significant concern as long as Huntington remains closed. If it were to be reopened or reconnected, then it would present some level of concern. There is at no time that we are anticipating it opening due to significant grades.
That access point is that left turn that's sort of guided on
Wish I had a better photo.
Wayzata Boulevard. I mean, like, that got redesigned at the intersection change at Superior and Wayzata Boulevard, you know, all that turn. So, I mean, my point is it's a guided left turn that's already in a, you know, kind of a
so there's the left turn
signaled
here.
way to get in.
As we're evaluating, or as I'm evaluating, I don't want to speak for the city engineer and on this subject.
You can see it
we
right
didn't
there.
speak
You
about
can
it.
see the
But here's the left
little
turn.
corral
to
there
the
for the
site.
left turn.
Here would be if you were taking a right turn to the site. Where my concern is reduced is at this point, you've gone to a slowed condition. You're now entering what feels like a parking lot.
Right.
Before you are then making the entrance into this site.
And that left turn is
So you've already reached a shielded location in some ways by removing that vehicle off of the traffic of Wayzata Boulevard.
But the 40 feet is from Wayzata Boulevard, not
Correct.
Huntington. Okay,
Yes.
so you're saying,
Well, it's from the intersection of those two.
got it.
So where those two meet that's the 40-foot.
When you look at their site plan, I don't really understand why they wouldn't have gone with the compliant entrance, because it leads right into parking.
So I'm going to let the applicant elaborate on that.
Yeah.
They have answered that question previously, so I know that they will be able to explain that in greater detail.
Okay. Thanks for the clarification.
Anticipating we have a ways to go on this, when you might deem it appropriate, I'd suggest maybe a little 5 to 8 minute break.
Sure. Yeah, we just for you guys' context, we've been here since 9:30 this morning. So it's been somewhat of a longer meeting. So that's, I think, a very appropriate request given we've been here since 9:30 a.m. So would you be open to the applicant making a presentation or
Whenever you
prefer
deem
now?
appropriate, yeah.
Yeah, maybe let's, just because the questions are so like right there, I think let's give the applicant a chance to make their presentation, answer questions, and then we'll have a short recess and then come back for a deliberation. Hopefully you guys understand that. So who will be presenting on behalf of the applicant? Welcome, and just state your name and the group you're representing.
Good evening. I am Dan Burnham, one of the architects on the project.
Yes, thank you. And John Brennan, Senior Vice President, General Counsel for Walzer Automotive.
Thank you.
So I guess if we want to start, since the slide's up, with that entrance in is an existing entrance, and Huntington significantly slopes as you go to the south, and we wouldn't be able to achieve proper grading to get into the site if we were to relocate it. Especially, I mean, with the fact that these cars are very low profile and they need flatter grades in order to get in and out of the site. If we were to move that to the south, we would not be able to achieve that with where it sits, with how that existing grade on Huntington works.
You're referring to the question I just asked, the
40-foot setback. And that's why we couldn't push it any further south, is just the way without rebuilding Huntington, which, you know, we don't own any of that, we couldn't get it to get access into the site to hit that 40-foot.
Okay.
So that's why we chose to keep it where it is.
Understood.
And then as far as the sidewalk, right now in front of Edina along Wayzata Boulevard, that sidewalk is right up on Wayzata Boulevard. And so there's a chunk of a sidewalk in the existing western lot right now that is only 5 foot, and then it stops and does not continue to the corner.
Right.
And so we're gonna widen that existing sidewalk and make it 7 feet and continue it all the way to the intersection where there is a curb cut and it continues across. But all the sidewalks throughout this stretch are right on Wayzata Boulevard. There's no grass between the road and the sidewalk.
You're talking about existing conditions.
Correct.
Yeah.
And so we're just continuing that for our site with what's on the east side and west side of what we currently have.
Do you want to address the suggestion of, you know, factual statement, those are existing conditions, but why did you choose this design versus you could potentially, maybe, provide a green buffer from the street to the sidewalk? So just talk about the design consideration as you thought that through.
Well, in order to meet the city code, we had the 7-foot sidewalk, and so we could meet that requirement. And then we have an internal sidewalk for when people come in, they come directly into our building without having to go to the city sidewalk and come back in. And there was a comment, I believe, in planning or something to physically connect those two sidewalks. So if you were to be walking down Wayzata, you could walk into the site. And so we did on the west side there. Originally, we didn't have that connection, but we put that in on that where you're circling. We added that since the original concept plan in order to connect the city sidewalk with our internal sidewalk.
Would you be opening to combining those two sidewalks and putting a green buffer in between the road and the sidewalk? As someone who
Certainly
does
look at it.
As someone who does walk a lot, it doesn't feel safe when you walk brightly on the street. So what I would do is I would walk on your private sidewalk until I couldn't, and then scoot right back up. And I would think a lot of the public would do that too, just for.
I agree, but it's no different than the site to the west as it sits today. So you're walking.
Understood. I understand that
know.
it's no different, but right now it's not.
Agreed.
It's not safe, and so.
We could look into it, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, and we face this on numerous properties on Wayzata Boulevard, and we've tried to balance each time trying to provide that buffer, and then they have the same situation. Their existing condition is either no sidewalk or a sidewalk that's right to the curb.
Yep.
So it's not unique to this property. It's a goal that we have as a city along this corridor. So it's not unique to this property. It's just a consideration that we're trying to advance along the entire corridor.
Yeah, we just reviewed another property on Wayzata Boulevard, and they said the same thing. One side didn't have a buffer, one side did, so we just went with the one that didn't. And then they heard from us and said, okay, no problem. We'll
yeah.
switch it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, just wanted to give you the context.
Okay, no, I wasn't aware.
Yeah,
Thank you.
That helps. Okay. Do you want to keep going with answering questions, or did you want to give your own sort of?
Well, I think we kind of reviewed everything. Do you want to nickel tour the building, the site layout, or do you want to just open?
Yeah, I mean, why don't you just give us, I mean, it's one thing to have a staff narrative, but just give us your own narrative of the project.
Right, so, Lamborghini drove around and chose Wayzata as the city that they wanted to be in, and so Walzers had the site, and originally we were going to keep the Mulberry's building in place, and over time it turned out where this is how we continued on with conversations with Mulberry's, and it worked out to where we were able to acquire that and take over both parcels, combine them into one for one building that faces Wayzata up to the setback line as it sits today with the showroom that sits along there. So as you're driving down Wayzata Boulevard, there's a significant amount of glass where you can see into that showroom, and the cars will be visible with all the finishes in that showroom that Lamborghini requires. And so we do have a significant amount of masonry, all masonry except for the black piece that will be ACM. We meet or exceed the glass requirements on all sides.
So it's masonry at the ground level, and then at that one story that's just a different substrate, masonry substrate.
Yes, we have a burnished block like wainscot up 2.5 feet, and then I have a precast architectural band, and then brick all the way up to the top of the parapet.
Okay.
And on the service side of things, we'll have the 6 service bays, and they do have heating and air conditioning in the service bays, so those doors will be closed a majority of the time, not like air-conditioned service bays where they'd be open in the summer, ventilating air. So the noise will be significantly reduced to the south as well. And then with continuing that fence, basically the entire property line east to west will help with that as well.
So they can run cars in the repair bays with the door down?
Yes. Yep, there's exhaust systems that they would put in place that would suck the exhaust out, not in the room, correct.
You just mentioned the fence. Would that be, would there be an 8-foot fence between, on the east side of the property, kind of that runs along that retaining wall between, like, right up against that apartment building?
Yes. Yep, in talking with the neighbors, that's how we got to the 8-foot fence, is we said we'd like to have the 9 stalls right there, and in order to block headlights, noise, street lights, etc., we would put a solid fence going east to west right up against their apartment. And then when we were here for planning commission, it was talked about that as the hill jumps up on top of that retaining wall, we would continue that fence all the way to the west.
Did the owner of the apartment building agree with that wall being there? Okay.
Anything else that you'd like to offer?
No, that's kind of it. I've heard everything else.
Okay.
I have a couple more questions for the
Yeah, absolutely.
applicant, if
That's
I
where
may.
let's- yep.
Absolutely.
How many boutique Lamborghini dealerships are operating right now?
In the U.S.?
Yeah, in the U.S. 30?
Speak to that better than I can. I don't know.
It would be right around 30 for this one.
And they're all about 9,000 square feet or under?
I am not familiar with the exact square footages, but this has to be within the realm of what they expect. This is a boutique, exotic brand, yes.
30. Could you give me a couple examples? I looked and I found one.
Oh, well, yes, Chicago, I believe it's called Gold Coast is the brand. That's the nearest, are there 2 in Chicago?
In Chicago, 1 in Denver. Those are the closest ones
Okay.
to the Twin Cities.
And I looked at the one in Greenwich. There were 2 that were in interior malls. They didn't feel too comparable to me. How many, okay, let's just go with one of them. Maybe, like, how many sales do they have a year?
Minimal, to say the least. And so, Walzer operates nearly 30 independent franchise dealerships across the country, but primarily here in the Twin Cities, nearly 20 or so locations.
Oh, I apologize. I meant Lamborghini, the boutique Lamborghinis, not Walzer.
Their unit count, I apologize, I can't speak to that. But this would be a lower volume Lamborghini dealership, even compared to certainly the Chicago examples or Greenwich, other larger metropolitan areas you're speaking of.
How many test drives do they offer, monthly or yearly at these boutique dealerships?
Yes, thank you for the question. I apologize, I can't speak to specific numbers on this, but in terms of test drives, everything is appointment only. So this is completely different than any other, dealership that I or any of us are probably used to frequenting. You cannot just show up and test drive a $300,000 vehicle. So it is scheduled. They are very sporadic in terms of trying to vet those customers to make sure it's not somebody out for a joyride. That's not what the OEM expects of us. That's not what we want to spend our time on in terms of generating actual sales. And so I would venture we're talking single digits per week.
Okay. On your original meeting at the Planning Commission, you told the commission that these were appointment only. But then at the most recent Planning Commission, I mean, it was, you guys stated that you did allow walk-ins. And now today, you said that it's appointment only. So could you clarify on?
Certainly. I apologize for any confusion. So in terms of a walk-in, there's not a scenario where somebody can walk off the street without any other kinds of credentials or showing their running credit or being identified as a true prospective buyer that would be able to get in a vehicle. I don't, as an employee of the company, expect to be behind the wheel of any of these vehicles ever. So it is, I would say, 99% of the time appointment only. If, not to play the hometown card, Anthony Edwards walks in off the street, Minnesota Timberwolf, we will probably put him behind the wheel to say, yes, this is a true prospective buyer that might actually be interested. So it is a rare exception. I would say almost in every case, it's going to be appointment only because we can't vet anyone else without having done some pre-work.
You think that a person couldn't walk in and prove their wealth to you that day? How many of those other Lamborghini dealerships, boutique-style Lamborghini dealerships, have active repair shops?
I believe the majority.
And how many service tickets or repairs do they do monthly or yearly?
In terms of the number of tickets, that's hard to say. Just by the number of bays that we have scoped out, this is very limited. I mean, by comparison, our Toyota dealership in Bloomington.
Again, I just want
50.
Lamborghini comparisons, other boutique Lamborghinis, not Walzer repairs.
Yeah, I apologize. What I'm trying to say is there's such a limited number of bays that the repair tickets are extremely limited in this type of market.
And so you can't tell me how many sales there are, you can't tell me how many repairs there are, and you can't tell me how many test drives at any of these other locations.
I apologize, those would all be estimates. In terms of other Lamborghini dealerships, this is our first in that. Obviously, it's a boutique market with a very limited retail presence compared to anything else on the street.
Maybe one of the other business people would know this. I think if you were going into an agreement with in sort of a franchise situation, you would have those numbers.
Yeah, I can tell you that, council member. So the planning volume, which is assigned by the OEM, and we have third generation Walzer here to represent, we're looking at 3-ish new vehicles per month. That is what the OEM looks at in terms of planning volumes. So that's the sales volume. They don't look at number of ROs or service tickets.
Okay, well, I would love information on how many service tickets, appointments, and then how many test drives you all do. And I'd like real solid confirmation about this appointment only situation, because it's flip-flop now, back and forth twice, so that feels like it's inconsistent.
Hi. Sawyer Walzer, one of the directors at Walzer, and in charge of part of this project. There's a boutique-style dealership down in in Illinois. It's called Downers Grove Lamborghini. And in speaking with them, their size probably isn't exactly, but it's pretty close to what we're talking about here. They're looking at around 5 to 10 ROs a month. So repair orders on customer pay vehicles, not internal work, but just people coming in with appointments to get their vehicles serviced. What I can tell you is that this dealership operates in such a different way from a traditional dealership in every metric. For the most part, as far as the new side goes, Lamborghini offers 3 vehicles, and 2 of which are generally north of $500,000. These are not vehicles we will be test driving almost ever.
Your narrative says 5. models?
True, there's different classes, but I would tell you that the Huracan is being phased out, and there's another version of the Urus, which is the SUV, that's also being phased out. So we're kind of in a weird limbo period with those. Right now, it's the Urus, which is an SUV, a Temerario, which is a sport car, and a Revolto, which is a hypercar. The Temerario and the Revolto will not really ever be test drived, just because the customers don't want to buy a car that 10 plus people have been in and driving around. The Urus will be the one that would probably be test drived, although very rarely. These customers generally know what they're buying and they know what they're getting into if they're spending that kind of coin.
So where do they go and drive the car before they decide they were going to purchase it?
Generally, this classic customer has an experience with this type of car, not necessarily the specific one they're buying, but they know what they're getting into, and this are more often than not vehicles that they just come in, they've already got their heart set on something, they know what it drives like, and they're coming in to buy it.
Okay, so they spend $500,000 on a car they've never gotten.
Believe me, it sounds crazy.
Well, I
No, I
mean,
know, but it
sounds. It doesn't sound very.
It's not the way that I would buy a car for sure, but in often cases, we're not actually dealing with the customers themselves, but a representative of the customer that's coming in to facilitate the transaction, and this is just kind of the nuance of this hypercar world.
So your counterpart in the greater Chicagoland area.
Yes, Downers Grove.
They can't tell you how many test drives they've done.
There was either this dealership or the one in Denver. Forgive me. I'm pretty confident it was Downers Grove. They don't offer test drives at all.
But okay, in all 30, they just don't do any test drives.
No.
It seems okay.
A lot of these are custom orders, right? I mean, so
Yes.
when you're ordering a luxury item like this, you're going through a discernment process to really pick out almost every detail to leather and to, so it's not
Color
buy off the
of every
lot is
stitch,
typically
yeah.
not the
No,
the
I
model.
I
So
get.
just want to clarify, and
Yeah.
also clarify, are you trying to ascertain like a comparable dealership or try to compare and contrast to a more traditional dealership? 'Cause
I'm
trying to
sorry
understand the line of questioning.
if my questions have been not clear.
No, the questions are clear. I just want to understand what you're trying to learn. So
What
that
I'm
they can
trying to
maybe be more
learn
helpful in
is,
answering them.
I'm very concerned about the use in this location, and I hear that this isn't your typical car dealership, and as I can see, it isn't. However, car dealerships are where you sell cars, test drive cars, offer repairs, and maybe even sell used cars. And now they may be at a different price point and a much different caliber automobile, but those four things is what makes a car dealership a car dealership. So I'm trying to gauge how active this is, because I don't feel that it's going to be as quiet as you think. And I mean quiet in multiple ways, but we'll get to that. And yes, you're talking about very expensive luxury cars, but you're not the only luxury car out there. So wildly, you kind of have a pick of a litter if you want to spend $500,000 on a car. And I would imagine if that was the kind of money you're going to spend on a car, you would want to drive that and or the Ferrari up the street or the 911 or the McLaren. There's just a lot of really luxury cars. So anyways, I'll move on. I just think the lack of information you're providing from existing boutiques, I'm finding a little bit alarming. And I do also note that your, I don't know if it was the CEO, but made a pretty public shift in the Lamborghini retail model pretty recently, where they have abandoned their whole EV program, and was actually quoted as saying in the news, excuse me.
I know Ferrari just made these claims of eliminating their EV branch. We don't have any EV-only vehicles. These are all hybrids.
Understood, but they were working on one that was going to come out in like '28, and it said Lamborghini would continue to build internal combustion engines for as long as possible.
Yes. Now, the 3 vehicles that again, I understand it's 5, but the 3 vehicles that we're going to be selling new are all hybrid vehicles. I'd be happy to touch on any of the points that you've brought up, as I'm kind of new to the podium here. There has been a question that was brought up in the last meeting, or the 2 meetings ago, which is we'd be happy to put up signs, things of this nature, to kind of reduce the noise level. When you start these vehicles, the new vehicles, they start in an EV mode. And they don't actually shift into the crazy V12s and all that stuff until you put it in Sport or Corsa, those modes that Lamborghini has. It would be an expectation we hold of our customers that they're not revving the engines and they're not peeling out of the parking lot. That would be a bad look on us, and honestly, it's not the way that we do business.
Right.
Yeah.
People who buy $500,000 cars, though, are probably...
For sure. We just don't want them doing it around us. We've developed a great relationship with the neighbors behind this building. We want to keep that.
Yeah. I bring it up with that focus on internal combustion engines simply because if you do spend time on Lake Street in Wayzata, you will know that it's a big nuisance down there.
I am on Grove Lane East.
Great.
I know.
So
it's brutal.
It is, and more attracts more, and someone who buys a $500,000 car may want to be seen in it.
They definitely want to be seen.
I would say so too. So
Yes. No,
I can't imagine a cruise down Lake Street won't be part of what you want to experience when you're test driving the car.
Now, we'd be happy to generate a route for our test drives, or we can have that discussion later on. I don't believe that that's going to be an intentional route at this point, just because there's 6 stop signs. These are routes that we'd be, the customers can take on once they own the vehicle, but that's not, again, of the few test drives we do, that's not going to be a part of our route.
I mean, I get what you're saying, and
Yes.
I can't fathom why anyone with a high-performance vehicle wants to stop at 6 stop signs and deal with pedestrians and make a bunch of noise and in front of a bunch of people trying to enjoy a park.
Yes.
But they really like it.
They do.
They do. So
Generally, my experience with the Lake Street stuff, and again, I'm kind of speculating here, so apologize, but generally the Lake Street and the revving and the cars that I've seen is of the younger crowd, kind of my age demographic, and wouldn't be the normal customer we have.
my anecdotal research is that your Lamborghinis are also really attractive to a younger.
For sure.
So, kind of proved my point there. Okay, I would love to give my colleagues a moment, and I appreciate very much your
clarifying. Just trying to understand, it's all about intensity of use, right? So that's really the line of questioning. So I was just trying to draw that out, and just maybe after the break, you guys can huddle and be maybe a little bit more specific on, yes, we understand it's not comparable to a Toyota dealership, but within the luxury class, trying to understand intensity of use. That's the question behind the question.
Yeah, and maybe you could gather some of that pertinent information from these other dealerships if that's at your fingertips. I would love to have those questions answered specifically rather than just kind of best guesses
Absolutely.
about the sales, the repairs, the test drives, and then how many used cars they sell.
Yes.
Thank you.
I can try to get that.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Just had a second request for a break, so we're not, I don't think, done with the questions or presentations. We can take a break now and come
We'll
back.
come back and have more questions.
Yeah, if they have
sure.
more. Yeah, so let's take a 5-minute break. Yeah, I didn't know that. Okay, I'm going to call the meeting back to order after this brief recess. So we will pick up where we left off, which was we had a brief presentation, a series of questions. We didn't have a chance for all council members to ask questions, so now I would turn it over to other council members to ask questions of the applicant. So who would like to go?
If you're okay, Mr. Mayor, I'll make a few comments.
Please, sir.
Or a question. Well, I very much appreciate the nature of the questions that Councilman McDonald asked, because I think that's kind of, we're getting to the heart of the issue that we'll probably have more conversation about. So just one other question that maybe didn't get asked that specifically, but how do you deal with used cars? Like, if Chuck wants to trade in his Chevy Malibu for a Lamborghini, like, how do you deal with used cars? And so do you sell them to individuals or just other dealerships or franchises, or, kind of getting back to the volume issue of like how much traffic we have, and
For sure.
if you could help us with that, it'd be great.
Yeah, love the example, by the way. But based on the nature of the vehicles that we're selling, it's going to be very rare. I'm talking less than 1% that we take in on trade on a new vehicle. The way that we formulate the used car inventory isn't necessarily based on any volume strategies or things that we're taking in on trade. It's a specialty class of vehicle, just as the same as our new cars. We could see 2012 McLarens just as well as we might see a 1980 Toyota Hiace. If it's a specialty car, it's something we're interested in selling. Because of that, we're not going to be seeing 6 test drives on a Honda Civic or something else that we bought at auction or wholesale or whatever else. If we do see vehicles like the Tahoe that you mentioned, or things that are kind of more of an A or B car, these are vehicles that we'd most likely distribute to one of our other locations, as the goal here is to sell specialty class vehicles that is not necessarily a high volume sale, but just exotic. So not necessarily a volume pusher, but just rather we have 20 bays underneath in the lower garage. We intend to use those for used cars for the most part. But again, the style of vehicle is going to be very specialty class, not offering a lot of test drives unless it's something that's aligns with the vehicle itself, but definitely more low volume.
You don't plan on having used inventory on the lot. You may be transactional with it and repurpose it somewhere else, but you're not lining up used cars in
that's not our intention. We have that underground bay to hold some of that specialty class of vehicle that isn't a new Lamborghini, but we aren't gonna. You're not gonna see the row of used cars with inflatable tube men and the balloons alike.
Yeah.
This is not that style.
But you'll have used car inventory at this location?
That is our intention, yes.
Up to 20?
It's hard to put a number on it at this point. I'm just brought up that number because that's what the underground parking garage will hold. It's not our intention to hold used vehicles on the outside lot, as that's mostly going to be customer parking and service and alike. But I just bring up the number 20 because that's what the underground parking garage will allow.
I think Mr. Sorensen had some follow-ups. So. Hold on, Mr. Sorensen wasn't.
Well,
My apologies.
if only 1% of your people deal with used cars, how do you get even half of 20? How do you get a bunch of cars downstairs?
Great question. So these are vehicles that we were going to be acquiring across the country, or vehicles that are a specialty car or class that's taking in on trade at one of our other locations as well.
Oh, so you are in the used car business in this location?
Yes.
Okay, another question I just thought of. How many typical team members would be on site every day, and where are they going to park?
Great question. As of right now, the team looks to be around 8 or less, yes. General manager, a few service technicians, and a couple of salespeople, and a branding manager. So around 8. As far as the specifics of the parking, 5 underneath is what she just gestured to me, and that's where they're going to be, in the underground parking garage.
5 spots for 8 people?
5 spots in the lower level, and then, yeah, Katie is going to be better at answering this question.
Hi, I'm Katie Cohen, Director of Facilities and Construction for Walzer. Yes, 8 is what we're currently planning. We have 5 stalls dedicated underneath in the lower level garage, and then we do have the surface parking to the rear also on the lower level. That would be the additional 3 for the other staff members to park there.
Okay.
Thank you.
Other questions, Mr. Sorensen? Ms. McDonald, I think you had a follow-up. I just wanted to give you that chance.
Will, out of that used car inventory, those can be test driven, right?
It just depends on the car itself. And I'm going to just bring up a wild example here, but if we had a Ferrari F14 worth $5 million, that's not a car we're test driving. But if I had the same 1980 Toyota Hiace with the van and the curtains in the windows, we'd probably allow that to be test driven. Fairly wild examples just because I don't have specifics for you on the rules that we have in place. It's just more discretion of the general manager and the vehicle itself.
Okay. I would imagine that used car inventory would fall somewhere in between those 2 examples you gave?
Yes, specialty class for sure. That's a great question. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Vehicles to be admired.
Other questions of the applicant from other council members? I just had one, I just want to drill into, what Ms. McDonald was asking. I think the context is, can you just make an overall statement about use, right? So in the luxury class, best of your ability, service, sales, intensity of use, right? Give us comfort that the intensity of use is lower, as I think, or consistent with previous presentations.
What I would tell you is that as far as we've seen with the Mulberries lot that's there, our traffic is probably going to be lower than that. There is a decent chance. Now, I'm just now remembering a concern that you had brought up, that we had appointment only, but also we are opening the doors to the public. This kind of aligns with that, which is that this is a cool product. We're excited to have it. We're excited to show it. So that was more of a concern on test drive specifically for appointments and customers and actually spending the time with a person to show off a vehicle. Generally speaking, it's our intention, at least in the opening months, to have the doors open to show these vehicles off to the people that just want to come in and see. If that gets to be too crazy, we are toning it back and making it completely appointment-based only. But that was just appointments only for the test drives. But we are still planning at this point to have our doors open to the public, as this is stuff that we want to show off. Again, the volume and the traffic is, and forgive us for continuing to bring up examples from our other dealerships, that's just what that's just what we know, that's what our experience has been. In every metric, this dealership will be smaller, lower trafficked, completely different from any other franchise dealership we have. I would be shocked if the traffic again exceeds that of Mulberry's right now.
Yeah. I just want to express that I'm disappointed you don't have some data from boutique Lamborghini dealerships.
So
you told me there were at least 30 of them, and you can only even think of 2.
Well, so these are private businesses, and more often than not, these are not businesses that are willing to share the data of the experience of their locations. We have a relationship with 1 or 2 of these, and the ones that we speak with don't even have the metrics on how many test drives they do in a month, because that's just not a number that they track. But again, it's so low to where when we bring up the question, it's something they kind of chuckle at, which is like, oh, that's not even a concern. That's the reason I don't have a specific number for you. If I could get one, I would be. That's why I wanted to spend that time. But this is not something that we normally track because it's so low.
This feels like you would want that information before you open the business.
For sure, and I want it to, the information that's important to us is what Lamborghini predicts that we'll be selling. That's, as far as a business, that's what we're the most concerned with, because that's where we make the money. We sell the cars. We don't make the money on test drives. We don't make the money on a bad example, but a timer or a bell that counts how many people that walk in the door. We make the money on selling the car, and that's the most important thing to track. And again, All these other Lamborghini dealerships, they're private businesses. These are not people or staff that want to share the information of the specific metrics because it relates to the closing of that dealership, and these are not things they're interested in sharing.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Any other questions of the applicant from anyone at council? Okay, hearing none, bring it back to the council for deliberation. So, thank you for, oh, did you have another? Yeah, we'll get there. So, two cards, I just wanted to get transition here.
If I may, in the recess, the break, thank you. We did discuss the sidewalk, as you had mentioned, and assuming that it would pass code and all the like, excuse me, I'm a little fresh to all this, it would be something that we'd be very happy to do, to continue that on for the public. Yes. So just wanted to bring that in to the discussion as well.
Great, appreciate it.
Perfect, so you feel like you've given all the information you want?
Yes.
Okay, great. We're going to bring it back to council. We did receive two cards at the break, so we will give you a chance to give that feedback now, and then we'll begin our deliberations. So I'd first invite to the podium Mr. Gordy Straka, please.
Yeah, Gordy Straka, 130 Huntington. I want to bring up a few things. First of all, I'm the first house right behind it, and that was the concern with the 8-foot fence, not only for me, but the whole neighborhood beyond me, because I sit down in the hole, but it does help for the traffic on Wayzata Boulevard and what have you. And one of the other things, this green lawn, a little bit, 7 feet of it, didn't meet code, where the green space. You got to remember that it isn't Edina building, but they rent it.
Primary tenant, yeah.
When they built that, that's at 0 setback. That's right up to the Huntington line and in the back. And this little 5-foot section, I don't think is anything that needs to be of any concern. But also, we've had water problems, me part of it, but coming from the cleaner's lot over the back hill of the apartments, washing it out across their driveway. Then it goes against Marty Johnson's fence, around the fence, down my backyard to the pickup station down in Fisher's backyard. It never used to be there. And this will be a great improvement for that with them grading it. And they also had talked earlier about where that driveway is going to come in off Central. They're going to have a curb and gutter there. So any water that does get there will go out. It won't be able to get over the curb. It'll go out to Central. They've been really good to deal with. And this noise thing, everybody concerned about it, that's ridiculous. If you come to my house, now you put a noise ordinance in here, I think last summer, you need somebody out there to enforce it. Because all I hear is Main Street noise, Main Street noise. Phooey about Main Street. I don't even go down there anymore. It's dangerous. But come on up on Wayzata Boulevard and 101. You want to hear noise, but we need some enforcement. If you got a new law, let's enforce it. I've never seen a squad up there working on it. But the noise is tremendous up there. And we're all in favor of this because it should be low volume than what the last thing you proposed with a drive-through coffee. And even the station, of course, over the years the station increased. I worked there when I was in high school. Wasn't too much traffic then. But the test drives and all of that stuff, and them saying bringing the cars out, the noise they make, phooey. That's nothing compared to what goes on the highway. And they aren't Lamborghinis doing it. It's many of the cars. Even late model, I've seen late model Ford Mustangs, just factory stuff that they get after, and it makes tremendous noise. And so I think that's a big concern that you're wasting a lot of time on. But I may have more to say later, but right now, that's all I can think of.
Thank you, Mr. Straka, for your input. Next card I have is from Mr. Greg Hoagland. Welcome.
Mayor and Council, my name is Greg Hoagland. I live at 120 Chevy Chace Drive in Wayzata, Minnesota. Could you do me a favor and put the new renderings up? Yeah. Couple things. My wife and I own the apartment building. It's not a vacant lot. It's an apartment building that's probably been there, I've been told, over 150 years, okay? So it predates me, if you know what I mean. What's interesting here is we have 5 residents. Some of them have lived there for over 20 years. They're Wayzata residents, and they're great, great people. And my wife and I bought it maybe a couple years ago, and our intention is to fix it up and provide, they're like little boutique units there, and they're great people. So I've also had a lot of experience with city council meetings and developers, okay? And I've lived side by side to some of the biggest developers in this state. And normally the person next to the development is opposed to it. I and my wife are in favor of it, okay? Now you gotta understand that apartment building does have windows. There's people living there, and they probably are 5 feet from where this development is going, okay? So why are we in favor of it? Number one, if we brought you over there, you could not believe they push all the snow and you push all the water. There is probably 50 years of water damage running through the back of our property, and it flows, like Gordy says, all the way down the street. So number one, you're gonna fix your water problem for a lot of residents. That is a big thing. Number two, I sit there, and this is, I wonder if you were not gonna approve this tonight, what are you waiting for? We've had a coffee concept, and I guess you'd be waiting for another medical building, or I can't even imagine, but I bet you will be waiting for 5 to 10 years for something to come here, okay? So we have been working with the Walzer Group. There is an existing retaining wall from our property. Some of it is on, some of it is not on. And they have been extremely collaborative and open-minded and willing to work with us, okay? Which is the opposite of any developer I've ever dealt with living next to it, okay? Another point there is the fencing will be great. The back of our property here is where it gets really interesting, and we've got to work together with a retaining wall to improve the back of that property. And all we ask for in the development process is one, that if there is any rain, or have had 10-inch rains in the middle of construction and this stuff flows into our property, that they will cooperate with us promptly and help repair it. Two, if there's any foundational damage, we're talking really close to a 150-year building, or something hits my unit or what have you, they will cooperate with me, right? And the last one is, I'm forgetting one, that the tenants, okay, we just need to abide by the hours of construction, okay? We've got people living there, and I've had some challenges in the past there. As long as they abide by the posted hours, we will notify our tenants, and we will be cooperative there as well. So I think from a strategic standpoint here tonight, you're looking at, one, a reputable car dealership in the community, who also has another dealership in Wayzata. They're well-funded. They're going to put additional taxes into the city, and I think it's going to be a boutique exotic car location, and I can't think of what else would be preferable to go in there versus another medical building or a dentist office. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hoagland. Okay, so bring it back to council for discussion now. So who would like to begin to weigh in on the pros and cons or more information they'd like to see? Who would like to start?
I have a question.
Sure.
And maybe this is for City Attorney Shelzel or staff. One of the concerns is that I've heard in watching the Planning Commission meetings and other feedback from community members is about preserving. So if this gets approved, we're approving it as a boutique, high-end luxury car dealership. How do we incorporate into our approval that it maintains that character in some form or fashion?
Mayor and council member, so you're right. That was a point that we discussed to a great extent at the Planning Commission level. And because this is a PUD, the city does have flexibility to incorporate it into the final PUD plan and the PUD development agreement, operational standards and use standards. So we can be very specific that the permitted use within this PUD is limited to a boutique automobile dealership. And some of the resolution, condition number 4, has some parameters that go to that. So we have a lot of discretion. I don't think we can be unreasonable or ask for something that's not tied to a genuine health, safety, welfare concern. But yeah, on your screen there, condition number 4 was what was recommended by the Planning Commission, that the final PUD plan and development agreement must incorporate a general description and specifications of the permitted use for the PUD, including hours of operation of the high-end automobile dealership, volume of cars shown, sold, and serviced, policies and procedures to be followed that minimize noise and that could impact adjacent areas. And I won't read them all, but so I think you should review that. And if you feel like there are other things you might want to see in the development agreement, either that the applicant has mentioned or that has coming out of your discussion, as long as it's reasonable, it goes to health, safety, welfare kinds of things, genuine concerns, I think we can put that in those final plan and PUD development agreement.
Okay, and then that way, if they were to someday sell the property, the new owner would have to abide by whatever was approved at the PUD or have to come back for city approval for any different use.
Mayor and Commissioner, or council member, exactly. I think that's, I think it's hard to imagine a change of ownership and in not having to get a PUD amendment, but perhaps a Ferrari dealership that was a competitor wanted to buy it and operate it in exactly the same way. Maybe we would analyze that and say, oh yeah, they meet that's a permitted use here. We're doing almost everything except tying it to the brand and the particular maker. But everything else is basically what the applicant has told us that they want to do with the property.
Thank you.
That's was also another reason for my line of questioning was about these conditions in the development agreement is, I want the conditions to be reasonable. And if we had an idea of how many sales, how much repair work, how many test drives, how many used cars, we could put in appropriate conditions. And so I hope that this information can be found by the next round, if there is a next round, so that we're not in the car business. So we don't know what's reasonable and what isn't. So I would really encourage the applicant to do a little bit of homework if this passes through to the next phase.
Mayor and Commissioner, if I may respond to that, I keep saying Commissioner, I apologize. We had a Planning Commission meeting last night and I keep thinking that way. So Councilmember McDonald, I apologize. Director Sharp has already had conversations with the applicant about some of those parameters, and the development agreement will come back to you for review and approval. And although that often goes on our consent, I think in this case it would be one we'd want to take up on new business, and so you could specifically review and look at those things. And I could see putting parameters in that agreement that were, ranges or not to exceed volumes that the applicant might feel very comfortable with. I mean, I've written down numbers that they've said at different times, single digits over certain periods, or no more than, 4, 5 models of cars, or those sorts of things I think we can put in that wouldn't unduly restrict them, but also clearly pin them down on the boutique model. So we'll work on that and incorporate those things into the development agreement.
I appreciate it.
Any other questions at this time, or did you have a question, or did you want to start to weigh in?
I don't have a question.
Okay. Would you like to start to weigh in then, Mr. Sorensen?
So try to keep these comments brief. But number one, I think our planning commission did the heavy lifting on this thing. And Joe, you and your team did, I think, a really nice job. Kind of got to the heart of the issue. So that's very much appreciated. How long has this site been, how long has it not been occupied by a commercial business? I mean, an operating business?
Gosh, I don't know. I mean, more than 5 years for sure. I'm very confident.
more
I'm thinking more like 10.
So I'd done some preliminary trying to go back. I could identify when the tanks were removed. I could identify when the building was demolished based upon permit records, but I couldn't identify the exact date that the gas station had closed down. I know that it was greater than a decade ago based upon the fact that the demolition permit was pulled approximately 8 years ago.
Yeah, so I just point that out because I think it just kind of is an indication of how difficult this site is. There's been a few things that have been suggested in the past that we didn't.
I can give you a point of reference. I mean, the gas station closed in 2010 or 2009 because I moved from Huntington. I lived there 11 years and then moved right around that time. And the gas station had closed before I made that move. So
Yeah. And a point was made, which I think is a good one. If not this, what? I mean, I think the real critical issue on this site is access. And it begs for a low amount of traffic, even though we all wish it was more of a retail-y, we want the corridor to be a very engaging place to people come and retail and walk, et cetera. But this site doesn't lend itself to really that, I don't think. I mean, it needs to be something low volume to work. You come from the east side on Wayzata Boulevard, you have a little turn lane. Don't take many cars to back that up. So in that respect, I think this usage, especially if we can restrict it to what we're saying, is a pretty good use of the site. In terms of the 4 or 5 variances and the design deviations, I think they really are a result of the practical difficulties of the site. I think we should include the suggestion of modifying the front walk in our development agreement, or make sure that gets incorporated somehow. And then the real key issue is what we're talking about is making sure development agreement is as specific as possible on the operation of the facility. Because my sense is, if it really does operate like it's being presented, it's a good use of the site. But the concern is, it kind of over time evolved into something a little bit different, and I think that's what we're all concerned about. So I would give a lot of credit to the applicant in working with the neighbors. I mean, you had a kind of a tough bunch to work over, I think. You did a really nice job there. My final comment was that anything with burnished block on Wayzata Boulevard, I don't think is a good idea. It's just, we need something of higher quality. Maybe it's a different size brick or color brick below the back. And even the back of it as you come on Central. I mean, burnished block, can you get much cheaper than painted burnished block? So anyway, I'd say throw that out there. Try to make it look a little better for that so important corner of our community. So those are my comments.
Thank you, Mr. Sorensen. Who would like to go next?
I'll just go ahead and go down the line here. I was one of the two people, I think, that voted against this in the first round. And the main issue I had is one that you all resolved, which was to try to wrap a Lamborghini dealership around a dry cleaner, and it just didn't make sense to me. So I'm really happy that that got resolved. Going through, I don't want to go through each of the variances and design standards because every one of them to me made a lot of sense for good reason. The only tiny heartburn I had was the design deviation, which I had the last time, and I do now a little bit. And the reason for that was that, you know, I was part of the Design Standards Committee and the Wayzata Boulevard Corridor, and we had this vision of what Wayzata was going to look like 10, 20, 30 years from now. And one feature of that was walkability and setback from the road, which was a safety and an aesthetic. And so that was a little bit of a heartburn for me going into this meeting tonight, but it seems like we had a good idea to resolve that issue. So even that has gone away. So all in all, I think this is going to be a real good addition to the community. And it's not a car I would drive exactly, but I can certainly appreciate them. And with regard to some of the comments made or concerns about test drives, I don't really think that's an issue. I mean, I think there'd be more noise complaints and issues from people just normally driving on the roads. If they have that kind of car, they might want to do exhibition driving wherever they might be. I don't think that the dealership is going to allow exhibition driving on a test drive. In fact, if I were to guess, if they do any test drives, they're probably pre-sold and they don't need this. They'll probably start them in electronic mode just to get them away from everything before they kick it into high gear. I drive an expensive, fast car myself, and I don't do exhibition driving where people are. Oh, actually, I don't do it anywhere, but I don't. Jamie, that's for you. Right to the speed limit.
Good catch.
Yeah. So anyway, all in, I think this is a good design. I think all the problems that the design had, all the little ins and outs have been resolved for good reason. So I have no reason not to approve this tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Plakish. Would like to go next?
I'll go next.
Sure. Thank you, Ms. McDonald.
Yeah, thank you, and thanks for all the good comments and good work from commission, staff, colleagues, and of course the applicant. I do appreciate you, and the neighbors. Lots of community at work here. The neighborhood support really weighed heavily on me. Even with my own resistance to this idea, that is the neighbors supporting it is more important than my personal opinion. So I can acknowledge that, and glad I have the opportunity to do that. I agree with Councilmember Plekish. Removing the dry cleaner was just such a great choice, and glad that got resolved before this next round, because it did create a lot of issues. The one thing I do still have, a couple of things I still have kind of an issue with is really the setback to the actual neighborhoods. Our neighborhoods are, I really think, what makes Wayzata so special, and having a commercial business so close to a residential neighborhood, it seems, I don't love that idea. I think the fence and the opacity of the fence is a really nice thing to do, and I support that, but I think it would have been a wonderful addition to abiding by the setbacks for the residents, and of course, and the drainage problem. Those feel like those should have been the must-haves, the setback to people's residences. Maybe the tenants now won't mind looking at a fence that's just 5 feet from their window, but a future tenant or it just doesn't feel neighbor and residential to me. So I really am having a hard time with that setback. The building grew 1,000 square feet, so perhaps it could go back to its original size, and then we would still be protecting the residential neighborhood, in addition to fixing this nightmare of a drainage problem, and also the generosity of adding that a nice-looking fence, too. So, and then, of course, the design deviations, I think we found a good solution of combining the private walk with the public sidewalk, and I do want to see the trees in that area as well. So all in all, there's a lot to support in this, but there's a few things with such a big empty lot that I don't think we need to make concessions on protecting residential neighborhoods and walkability for our community.
Thank you, Ms. McDonald. Mr. Cook?
Okay. I agree with a lot of the comments that have been said here by my colleagues. In regards to the variances, the neighbors' input weighs a lot on me, and I put a lot of value in that. One of my bigger concerns was the 8-foot fence along Mr. Hoagland's apartment building, and concerning that was going to block at least the first floor windows along there, and the fact that you support that and support this, that is significant for me. I was around when on the council when the first Chace Bank proposal came along, and I think this is a much better use. I think it will be quieter. I think it's, as Councilmember Sorensen said, this is probably about as good of a use for this property with traffic and noise as we could get. It's a small site. It's even with kind of combining the two parcels, and so I think that there are some practical difficulties with that, and so with all that, I would support this with the conditions that are in there, and that will work out with the development agreement, and appreciate the applicants working with the neighbors and the neighbors working with the applicant. And again, like it's been said, but I think it's also important, the Planning Commission's work on this was super helpful in doing research for me and getting me up to speed on the project. So appreciate everybody's efforts there.
Thank you. Try to be not duplicative, but the pros that I see are, improved landscaping to current conditions. I mean, net new trees, the willingness to partner with us on a change in how the sidewalk is configured for that buffer, now that you understand the context of kind of the migration that we're trying to make over time all along the corridor. So I appreciate you guys meeting us there in that way. I think the variance on the fence, for example, I mean, to screen the neighbors, that's a very strong justification. That fence is, I mean, I lived on Huntington for 11 years, and that fence has had struggles, Mr. Straka, over the years of who maintained it, and unfortunately, a lot of folks had to complain over time to get it maintained, and the fact that you're going to put something substantive there of a higher level, I think is great. Same thing with the drainage. I mean, certainly the lift station or the in back of Fisher's yard remedies the problem once it occurred, but it does nothing to snip the root cause. And the root cause is that high retaining wall and cliff and the grading of the site, and at its worst, I mean, I still have videos on my phone. You would not believe, we're talking like a cascading waterfall that you'd see on the North Shore along that edge there that goes right down to Mr. Straka's backyard and flows around the corner and all the way down to the lowest point in all of Wayzata, which is Bob Fisher's backyard. So I think it mitigates that. The one concern that I think was brought up is valid, which is unintended consequences for a future use. If for some reason Walser decides to get out of this class of car, we wouldn't want unintended consequences of somebody picking up this for a car use that is different than what we intended in terms of boutique sales. So I would look for language, and the Planning Commission called it out, about, I think this is what they're referencing, is related to a stronger business description, right? That they talked about in their unanimous approval, and that weighs on me too. When you see unanimous approval in this process, that's another thing to the positive. I do think we can get there, though, based on the feedback that we gave you tonight, working with our staff in the development agreement to put some parameters in there that mitigate our real concern, which is, okay, what gave me some comfort is if the use is lower than the existing dry cleaner, dry cleaner's gone, you've got a net gain just on that alone. But putting some parameters on in that development agreement that prevent future change, that unintended consequence, because it runs with the land, and we don't want, oh, okay, well, it turns into, I don't know, Bob's repair shop or a used car lot of classic cars and they're all on the street, whatever it is, right? We don't want that as an unintended consequence. So I do favor this, and the last comment I would make is if you look at it in the context of what has been proposed and the unique parameters of an already site that didn't work, right? I mean, you had a gas station and a dry cleaner, you had a dry cleaner with a curb cut that is probably, I mean, no city planner or engineer would allow a curb cut to be right after a red light on a county road, right? So we're mitigating that as well. So you're getting a lot of net positive to this use, right? And I think I think Mr. Plucker stated it very well. I mean, the tipping point is getting rid of that use to make this more workable. So for all those reasons, I would be in support. So with that, I heard some consensus moving towards a majority position for some sort of approval. I guess I would look for Mr. Shelz's guidance because there are variances involved. We do have a findings of fact within the Planning Commission report, but we're also adding some additional conditions, or, I mean, I guess not specifically, but I heard consensus for a condition in the development agreement that prevents unintended consequences in the future. So can you kind of guide us through sequentially what the resolution needs to look like to address variances and to address the additional condition that I heard consensus evolving for?
And if I might add as well, City Attorney Shelzel, could you talk about where, if it's at this stage or in a future stage, the concept of the public sidewalk would fit into this as well?
Yes. Mayor, I guess, why don't we put up on the screen the actual resolution? Because I think the resolution as drafted supports almost everything that's been discussed.
Okay.
And what's left to be worked out will be coming back to you in that PUD development agreement and the final PUD plan that staff will review. So it has all the findings that support all of the requests in the PC report that's referenced in this resolution. And maybe I'll just spin real quickly through the conditions of approval there on, if we go back one page. Yeah, so the first thing covers they've got to get all their building permits. They've got to follow rules of construction, including days and times of work. I know there was some public comment about making sure they're neighborly during construction. Stormwater facilities, grading and drainage, that's all has to be reviewed by the city engineer. And then number 3 starts to get into what we've been talking about. They've got to enter into a PU development agreement that meets with city attorney's approval, incorporates all the approvals and conditions of this resolution and the final plans, requirements of the zoning ordinance. And then number 4, we've got to have a PUD development agreement that has a general description and specifications of the permitted use for the PUD, which would be, boutique, high-end automobile dealership, limited volume, all these things we've heard from the applicant and that are in the public record, but specifically addressing hours of operation for the dealership, volume of cars sold and services, the policies and procedures they'll have in place to kind of, regulate the use to address noise and other things. The final plans, I actually think the general plans probably have the expanded fence design to run the entire length of the south end. And then a construction management plan for the project that's acceptable to staff. The one condition that I've heard tonight that I would recommend adding to all that would be that the applicant modify the sidewalk design in the final plan that runs along Wayzata Boulevard to incorporate a buffer between the sidewalk and Wayzata Boulevard that also incorporates standard tree plantings and that combines any of the public and private part of the walkway.
Okay.
So to restate that, Mayor, I think you could ask for a motion to approve. Well, I think if council doesn't want to break any of the requests apart, like, oh, I'm all for this except for that one design deviation, if council, you could entertain a motion to approve everything, which is what the Planning Commission report and recommendation was. It would just be adopt Resolution 1226 as presented with that additional condition I read about modifying the sidewalk.
Could I ask a quick question,
Absolutely.
Mayor and City Attorney? So then, with those modifications, the design deviations aren't really necessary because the land, but the street trees deviation, that's scrapped though. So they wouldn't get that deviation for the street trees.
That's a great question, Councilmember. Director Sharp, if the plans were modified for that buffer, would the deviations that are needed change? Either they wouldn't need those anymore, or would they need another one?
Mayor, Councilmember, City Attorney, I think that would depend upon final design and pending being able to see where things fit, grades, and ADA compliance. I would be unable to say whether a deviation at this time would be required. I suspect they may still struggle with the 26-foot spacing on trees, specifically if you're combining sidewalks. So I would recommend that they remain in place at the moment until a final design will be able to be brought forward. Because it may reduce the total amount of deviation required, but there may still be, so let's say it's at 30 foot right now for the separation between 6 foot, and I think this one potentially could go away, and it reduces to 15 foot of that needs the deviation, we would still need that action to occur this evening.
So essentially, we could vote no on the deviations and then deal with them.
I'm sorry, let me rephrase. I think the deviations may still be required until we see a plan that they would not.
But if we approve them, what would make them motivated to create a plan where they wouldn't be needed?
The additional condition added would then be addressing the future design.
What did we do on the Minnetonka Avenue project where we did a change, right? We said, hey, your proposed design, we'd prefer the buffer. How did we handle it in that situation? That was very recently.
I don't think they were asking for a deviation.
They weren't asking for a deviation, but their original plan didn't have the buffer. That's my only point.
I'm unfamiliar with that, how we process that one.
Okay, all right, that's fine.
To amplify or build on what Director Sharp said, Councilmember, I think my feeling would be to leave those deviations in the application and prove them. They may not be necessary in the end. Hopefully they won't be with the redesign. But if they still can't quite fit those trees in that they need to for some reason, they wouldn't have to go back and get another deviation. My only concern with that approach would be if the design creates the need for a new deviation that they haven't asked for, then they would have to go back to the Planning Commission for that approval. And then that would eventually come back to you too.
Sure.
I think it's a little bit difficult to design from the dais and know exactly, without seeing a design, whether a deviation would be needed and what it might be. But the best way to set this up, I think most efficiently, if this is the way council would want to go, would be to approve the application as presented, but make a condition that they present that, or they incorporate that modified design to the sidewalk. And that may eliminate the need for one of those or both of those deviations.
Okay. Include the modification for the sidewalk and also include that street trees would be there if there can be.
If there can.
Yeah, the way I had articulated it a moment ago, and check me on this, is that the condition that would be added would be that the applicant modify the sidewalk design in the final plan along Wayzata Boulevard to incorporate a buffer between the sidewalk and Wayzata Boulevard with standard tree plantings and to combine any public-private aspects of the walkway.
I can live with that
Okay.
language. If I wanted to vote no on the side yard setback, could we pull that out separately?
Mayor and Councilmember, it'll be a little tricky to do that procedurally. I think you could take two approaches. You could vote no on the motion and just say for the record that I'm voting no because I can't get behind that piece. Or you could vote yes and say, well, I still don't support that, but I'm for this modified design. So it's kind of up to you, council member, I think, how you would want to express that. And Mayor, you could take a separate vote on each piece of the application. It would be, because there's so many of them, be tricky. Or you could pull that too.
And I guess my preference wouldn't be to pull it out just because I heard consensus for approval. But I think you would have great purview to define your up or down vote based on what criteria, what was giving you pause, right? So that your record be very clear that you support everything except for, and because of that, I'm supporting a no, or I'm there, but I have to state for the record that this setback gives me, pause.
Okay.
Because otherwise, I think there's so many different variables.
That's
And
why
if there
asked.
was a split council, or if I heard, then I would be more open to trying to take it down that way. But I think it might provide unnecessary complications to move along.
Well, then, if I could just real quickly, I know I've taken up a lot of time tonight, and I apologize for
No,
being
it's
so
certainly right.
wordy, but I do support the majority of this application, but I feel very strongly about setbacks abutting residential neighborhoods, and for me, it's just 6 feet, so why can't you guys just make 6 feet work? So, with all that said, I am going to vote no tonight. I know it will be passed because I've heard that it's supported here. So please take that with a grain of salt and just know that it's really about neighborhoods abutting commercial properties. And I just don't see that variance request as being reasonable.
Mr. Blackish.
I can just say, I hear that you're going to vote no, that's fine. But I would think there would be some level of comfort in knowing this, that the setbacks like that are designed for the purposes of helping the next door neighbor in these things. And the two neighbors closest to that property that are the ones affected are both here tonight and both spoke in favor of it. So I know there's a philosophical general thing, but in this case, the people that are most affected by it both support this. So take some comfort in that.
I do take comfort in that. I just am thinking further ahead with a 100-plus-year-old building that sounds like it has significant damage. So it might be a different, anyways, I do take comfort in it, but it's still, setback variances are, I just don't think it's necessary. I think this project could have gone forward without it.
Fair point, and noted for sure. I guess one final question for Mr. Schelzel. I mean, we do have one more bite at the apple in terms of reviewing the final PUD and the final development agreement. And typically that would come on consent, but it's certainly, if someone's uncomfortable with the conclusion that you reach working with the applicant, it certainly could be pulled and tweaked at that time if necessary.
Yes, Mr. Ray, that's correct. What will come back to you as council will be, the relevant thing will be that final PUD development agreement. It'll have the rules. I think those staff, your council approval isn't technically needed for the final PUD plan. It's usually reviewed by staff because this condition has been attached to
You
it.
asked for a change.
I think it makes sense for it to come back because staff will want to make sure that the modified sidewalk plan captures
Meets
it.
the intent of what
Yeah,
we
and if
discussed
it,
tonight.
and you would still have the prerogative to say no because you don't think the development agreement captures that condition too. So yes, the short answer is you will have another chance to review and approve.
If something we just felt didn't get the spirit of what we communicated tonight, that's not saying that
Yeah, and
we unintended it, just make sure that we have another chance to
I think that's
clarify.
the other area, Mr. Mayor, that'll be really important to look at are all the parameters that will work out with the applicant about operation and permitted use too, which are kind of alluded to in condition 4. We'll want to make sure that council looks at that closely and feels comfortable with those.
And just last question to make sure I get this right, to tee up a motion. The buffer sidewalk and trees in a public-private sidewalk scenario, and to generalize, business description that reflects, intent of if it moves on to another owner, all would be wrapped up in part 4 of the existing resolution.
Yeah, condition 4 would require that. Yeah, I think
Both of those issues can be framed in item 4.
I think they are, yes.
Okay, just want to make sure so that we can be really precise. And
City Attorney Shelsley, you think the sidewalk component is wrapped up in item 4?
No, I guess I understood the mayor to say that the use and operational things are there, and that there's a requirement that they're incorporated into the PUD, and that new condition would be 2. So,
There'd be an additional condition about the
Sidewalk.
yeah.
Yeah. So I guess to further clarify, it's the last condition, and so just making sure that it's, we're addressing everything that we.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I think to be really precise about this, when you sign this resolution and we work on the final language with the clerk, it will look exactly like what you see here.
You'll have one more
And I will add what I read to you right at the end of 4. Or it might be, we might end up making it the new 5. I don't, substantively, it'll be the same result.
So I would accept a motion to approve Resolution 12, 2026 for the final PUD plan and PUD development agreement that needs to come back to us, subject to the revisions to Condition 4 that Mr. Schelzer just stated, and acknowledging the additional condition of the buffer sidewalk with standard trees in a public-private partnership manner. Did I get that right, or?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I think if I can use the exact language I read earlier as part of your motion and the amendment to existing 1226, I think then that motion stands.
Okay. So reflective of the precise language that Mr. City Attorney guided us on, that adjustment to item 4, and so I would accept that motion.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make that motion.
Thank you. Can I have a second?
I'll second that.
Great. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Nay.
Nay. That passes 4-1. And thank you for your patience tonight. And it's been a long day for us, at least on this side of the dais. So, Mr. Swank.
Comment if that's okay.
Of course.
So this is primarily for the applicant, a little bit for staff, but, I think there's pretty good conceptual alignment on where we are, but we're not done. I think there's going to be a lot of scrutiny given to this development agreement, final PUD. As you can tell, we're very keen on what that's going to say. So I would encourage everyone to be as specific as possible and work hard to really make sure that's something that you think is going to meet the intent of what we all have in mind. So I just want everyone to leave with the idea that we're not done yet. That's it.
Thank you for that clarification. I'm sure it's noted by the applicant, and appreciate that. Any other comments before we move on to the next agenda item? So the next agenda item is pretty easy, which is the interim city manager's report. Ms. Yeager.
I'll be brief as my voice is barely going to hold out for the rest of this evening. I just want to issue a reminder to folks that this Thursday night, all are invited to attend the State of the City address this Thursday night in this room at 6:30. We'll kick it off with a reception, cookies and coffee, and conversation, and then transition into the formal program, which the mayor will lead starting at 7. So again, that's this Thursday at 6:30 in the council chambers. Please don't miss it. I'll be brief and leave it at that.
Yeah, well, it's not going to be a long address, so we'll be brief and be gone, as they say. So, well, thank you for that. The only other comment that I have is just to note for the record that we did meet earlier today to go through our discernment process on our final candidates for city manager, and we intend to make an announcement very shortly about those results as we communicate with all of our finalists, and then we'll make that more formal in the coming days. So. Just wanted to acknowledge that. So with that, any other comments from council that you'd like to make this evening? Okay, hearing none, I would accept a motion to adjourn this evening.
So moved.
Thank you. And a second?
Second.
Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, that passes. Thank you.